And welcome back to yet again another special edition of the Michael Decon program. I look forward to once again serve you those sounds of salvation. First-time listeners out there, I'm very pleased you found us. We've been looking for you. This is a very different kind of show, a place where we don't feel so alone. Let us chase away the light no matter what you at home choose to believe. We do admire you for your curiosity. Tonight, we've got a full house. First up, our guest is actually in China right now. Please give a warm welcome to Fernando Muniz. He's a modern language teacher. He's worked in America and also in Colombia. He will be giving us an update on COVID-19 and what is actually going on out there. Due to COVID-19, he has actually closed down 3 of his facilities out there, and you just hate to see it, don't you? Oh yes, that's very unfortunate. And of course, after the break, we've got Billy Ray, straight out of NYC. He is the host of the Infinite Fringe, and you can find that over at Truth Frequency Radio. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for allowing me into your hearts and into your minds. Here we are again, on a night like this. What's up, boys and girls? I'm so glad that you're out there. I'm honored I hope you missed us because we missed you. And remember, you too can get involved. That number is 760-332-8724. 760-332-8724. To those out there on YouTube, you'll see the number on the screen. And don't be shy. I won't be mean, I promise. Now let's get down to brass tacks and bring in Mr. Mike Hideous, my co-host, and the guest. Let's see if they are even alive. Mike, what's going on? Did we lose Mr. Mike Hideous already? Well, I see everyone has muted themselves. My God. Don't you just love Skype, boys and girls? Yes. Everyone is muted for some odd reason. Oh, yes. Mike is here, don't worry. It seems like everyone has fallen off, but don't worry, we do have Mike here. What's up, Mike?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Oh, okay. I was gonna sign off and sign back on again.
Don't worry, it was my fault. I had you on mute.
What about Fernando? Is
No,
he
Fernando's here.
I'm right here, yeah.
What's up,
There
gentlemen?
he
I'm
is.
sorry about that. I had all of you on mute.
All right. So everything's cool.
Yeah, we're good. Don't worry. So, Fernando, welcome aboard. I'm glad you're here. And my God, I'm sorry about that. Skype is just not on my side sometimes.
Well, good morning, guys, and good morning to you. Well, good evening to you guys and to all the listeners. And first of all and foremost, I would like to say thank you for inviting me to the show. I'm very glad to be here and well to have this conversation with you guys.
Yeah, no doubt. And of course, you're all the way out there in China, of all places, live and direct.
Correct. I am in a city called Dongguan, which is south of China. I'm about 30 minutes from Hong Kong, from the border.
Very nice. So, good morning to you, by the way.
Thanks, man. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for spending some time with us here this evening for us, out here on the West Coast. And I've been checking out some of your updates on YouTube, and I really like that car you're driving, by the way.
Oh, that Neo? That's awesome.
I like it. It's pretty nice.
It's the real competition. There's a lot of people out there putting prototypes, and yes, this is what we want to do. This is what we want to do. This is already in the market. So it's not a project. It's a real thing you can go and buy at a dealer.
Oh, I dig it. Now, of course, you're a teacher out there in China, and of course, you taught here in America as well as your home country of Colombia. And
Correct.
what was life like for you pre-COVID-19?
Here in China was normal. I mean, I work at a training center. Well, not that I work, I own training centers. So we work mostly in the evenings when the children, sorry, excuse me, when the children finish the school around 4 or 5, then they get to the center and they study for an hour and a half. So we had Mondays off and work would go from Tuesday until Sunday. Saturdays and Sundays we would work all day. Those were like the bread and butter days. You could work 8-9 hours on Saturday and the same on Sunday. So it's kind of like the opposite of most people. Most people work during the day. We work in the evenings and weekends. So yeah, working 35 hours a week. And during the day, I used to spend it. I choose what to do on a like every 5 years. I decide to do something else. So about 2 years ago, I decided to start my YouTube channel. So during the mornings, I shoot and edit and do all those things, and then I go to work in the evenings. But yeah, COVID-19 changed everything.
Oh, yes. I would imagine.
Now I don't know which day of the week it is or what day. It's insane.
Wow. And what?
Are the schools closed out in China?
Yes, yes, they've been closed for, well, January 15th was the last day, 17th, sorry, was the last day that most people worked because we were going on the winter holiday, the Chinese New Year holiday, which is usually 1 month. So most schools send their kids away, and training centers like mine, we also go away for about a month. And right down in the middle of it, this came out. That was January 25th when I got the first notice right after Chinese New Year, and we haven't opened since. So yeah, we've been closed for about 3 months now, and well, the schools are starting to reopen in different provinces. So provinces that haven't been too affected, kids are already going back to school. Here in Guangdong in the south, which was not hit very hard, there's plans for schools to open in the middle of, okay, high school is opening at the end of this month. So a few more days they will be going back to school. In the middle of May, they're going to go for middle school and I think primary school, but the government hasn't set a date for kindergartens or training centers to reopen. So,
Real quick question, Fernando. How
yeah.
long, on an average, how long is a school day? What time does it start for kids and what time does it end?
Well, it varies a little bit depending on the grade. So if they're primary school, for example, those start around. And here's another interesting thing. Most of the kids get their breakfast and lunch from the school. So they get to school around 7:30. Then they take a very long break at noon because they nap. So from say 11:30 until 2 o'clock, there's a break for lunch and nap, and then
Wow.
they study until 4 or 5, and then they go
Wow.
home.
And
That's
now I got to make a comment to Michael. Michael, you know, the kids out here in the States who go to school from what, 9 o'clock until about anywhere between 2 or 3. Big difference, right?
Well, of course, it's a lot different. The whole
sure.
culture is different out there.
Oh, I understand the
Another
culture, yeah, but I mean the length of that's put into education is astounding.
Well, there's an aspect that it's important to keep in mind is that the classrooms here, the size of the classrooms is very different. I mean, most classrooms are 50 kids. So in order to get 50 kids to get a certain concept, say physics or math, right, you need to spend a bit more time. Or to check that everybody's getting the things that you are trying to teach them, it takes a little bit more time. So I guess that's something to consider.
Definitely. And of course, I'm curious what made you go out there originally? What drew you into
Um,
China?
bankruptcy?
Bankruptcy.
Really?
Explain.
No, okay. I had a trading center back in Colombia around 93, 94, and then we had a political issue where um, one of our presidents was elected with money from the drug cartels, and
Ah,
then
okay.
Oh,
America, um, America decided to pull out all the investment, and those were my customers, of course, all the multinational, the corporations that had uh, links to Colombia. They needed training, so that's those were my customers. So I lost my company very quickly, and I had to go back and work at a university for about 3 years to pay my debt. And then I said, like, okay, two factors. Number one, I'm tired of working for $500 a month as a university professor.
Wow.
And the safety. The safety in the country is a little bit of an issue. I'm not going to lie. So I decided, well, I want to go somewhere else. I've been to Mexico, I've been to the US. I taught at places where people spoke Spanish. So that made it an advantage as a teacher. So I wanted a challenge. So I started looking at Asia. And I first wanted to go to Japan, but because of my passport, they wouldn't take me, regardless of whatever qualifications or ability you have. You don't have a native speaker, a passport from a native speaking country. You're not allowed to work in Japan. I looked at Thailand, and I might as well stay in Colombia for that money. And then I looked at China, and the offerings were just in the thousands, just page after page after page of job offers, and the money was decent. So I thought, yeah, let's have a go and try China.
Well, that makes sense.
And interestingly enough, I got to experience what most people fear about China, the falling in the hands of an agent that is going to sell you like a piece of meat. That was my experience when I first got to China.
Understood.
Yeah,
And of course,
yes.
everything must have been a smooth sailing for you at one point out there.
It's funny because when I landed in Shanghai, this is in the year 2000, the guy was supposed to pick me up at the airport and he was not there. He didn't show up. So I started like, okay, what the heck am I going to do here? I'm
Right.
just going to grab the next flight out.
Yeah, right.
He showed up like 2 hours late, and I was like, I don't know if I wanted to punch him in the face or hug him.
Understood. Yeah, that's a pretty common feeling to have.
And well, my original contract was to work at a university. I felt like, well, this is a good profile. I was working at a university in Colombia. Now I'm going to go to work at a university in Xi'an. It was called the Xi'an Translators University. And the next day, he ships me out to a place called Harbin, not Xi'an, like 20 minutes from Russia in winter. I'm a tropical boy. I'm from Colombia. I've
Right.
never seen snow in my life, so I'm wearing everything I own. And and I'm teaching kindergarten. It's like, what the heck are you talking about? I don't know. I bring all my books, my literature, no, my suits. No, 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 it's very easy. Apple banana. You just go teach apple banana. What the fuck do you mean apple banana for half an hour? I don't know what to do. It's like I had no experience teaching children. I mean, nothing wrong with apple banana. It's just that that's not what I did for the last 7 or 8 years of my career. So that was super challenging. But what am I going to do? I mean, I'm going to just pack up and leave?
That
No,
must have
it's
been
just
pretty annoying at first.
annoying and concerning because
Yeah.
what's if from the get-go you start with lies, how's it gonna end?
Right. Right, right.
May
Oof.
I ask a question real quick?
Sure, man.
Um, so now I gotta ask you. Now you're from Colombia. Correct me
Correct.
if I'm wrong. Is Colombia a socialist country?
No, no, no. We
Okay,
are the longest democracy in Latin America, more than
okay.
100
That
years.
be that as it may. So now you moved to China for your career. How how has it been adjusting to a communist country where you come from, when you come from a South American country that's relatively free?
You don't see it.
I
You
see.
don't feel it.
I get it.
You don't experience it. It's out of your circle. Do you know what I mean? It's not on your
I
day-to-day
understand.
basis.
Yeah,
So as a foreigner, it's a non sequitur for me. It doesn't affect at all.
I see. Okay. Yeah, because I mean they bring a lot of tourists into their country. They're not like Korea, North Korea, where they keep everybody out. Well, not that they keep everybody out, but it's a lot more propaganda going on in that country than in China, I would
Hmm.
imagine. And again,
Yeah.
look ahead.
Sorry,
You
you
were
were.
saying.
Well, no, what I was saying is that I knew nothing about China, just very, very little. So I came here expecting to see people wearing Mao suits, everybody riding on bicycles. I get out of the airport and it's just Ferraris and Lamborghinis and girls in miniskirts, and I'm like, what? Whole, so yeah, that's what I call the biggest culture shock. Like I was expecting something very different, and I'm talking the year 2000, okay? So imagine how it has developed the whole country, all areas in the last 20 years at the speed of growth that they have, like double-digit growth for the last 5 years it hasn't been double digit, but for at least 20 years they were developing double digits their economy, right?
Right.
So yeah, it was a shock. Like, gee, I
Yeah,
was so wrong
I
from
would
the
expect
first
that.
moment that I stepped out of the plane.
Right, I would expect that. Especially being from Colombia, going there and bit of a culture shock indeed.
Yeah, I think that the funniest thing that I encountered was watching. I was walking with a Canadian friend and a South African friend, and we were around Shanghai walking, and we saw just guys hugging each other and girls holding hands. So we're thinking like, is everybody gay out here? What is this?
Right, right.
maybe it's a population control thing from the government, but it's just the way it is. It's just, yeah, that for me was the first thing that I was like, I this is different.
Right.
Yeah.
I would assume that for sure. I'm sure going there and seeing that you might have been slightly confused about what's happening here.
I remember on my first birthday, which was like what, a month and a half after I landed, I was actually kissed twice by men.
Oh
And I'm
no.
like, what? But it's part of them not knowing how to interact with you. They've been closed off for so long that they probably just seen something on TV or whatever. I have no
Well,
idea.
the question is, did you get some tongue when you got kissed?
No, no. The funny thing, I mean, the summer was long, my friend. It took me almost a year before I got any. Because, well, picking up girls is very different here.
Now, I would have to assume, what is that like out there for you, if you don't mind us
Well,
asking?
look, the thing is, there are many elements that come into play here. Number one is language, right? So you got to find a girl that speaks a little bit of English so you can like, courtail her, right? The second thing is, well, they are seen as different if they're dating a foreigner, for example. So they're very reluctant to do that. I mean, back then, all right, back then, there's a very big
Yeah,
difference
early 2000s,
in
by the
how
way.
they see foreigners now.
Mhm.
So they were not too keen to be seen with foreigners. Like you invite a girl to go out, and she will bring two friends, and like you're dating three people.
Nice.
Because they didn't want to be seen
Right.
with a foreigner like in an intimate setting. So yeah, and I remember I had a girlfriend. Well, I told her like, hey, how about we date? Okay,
Ooh,
2 months, not even a kiss. We would walk out on the streets and we wouldn't be holding hands, like absolutely nothing. So
bummer.
after like 2 months of that, you're like being patient, being understanding, like okay. But I'm like, nah, that ain't wanna work. Let's live it like that, Amy. And
She didn't want to tell anyone she was with a gaijin, with a foreigner.
yeah, the Gaijin in China is the Guilao.
The Guilov, okay.
Guilao. Yeah, that's a term. Guilao.
I'm going to have to remember that one.
Guilao is kind of like a derogatory term for a foreigner. It's like the Colombian gringo, right?
Ah,
Right.
okay.
So, but the proper term would be Waigoran or person from outside.
Hmm, interesting.
Yeah.
My goodness. Okay, so, going back to the whole dating thing, what about now? I mean, is it much more relaxed these days? Well, I'm obviously not now, but before
It also
pre-COVID-19.
before COVID-19, I don't think that COVID-19 has, well, if I think about it, perhaps yes, it has changed a lot because nobody wants to touch you in any way or form. But I was gonna say that dating also depends on where you are. Larger cities, girls are a lot more open-minded, more westernized, more adventurous, more independent as well. But the further inland you go, you will find less and less of that. For example, you would find girls who smoke or have tattoos and dye their hair in funny colors in cities like Shenzhen, Beijing, Shanghai. But you go to smaller places and you're not likely to see that too much. So you see that difference in how they carry themselves from one place to another. So
Mm.
my experience is from a small city of 10 million people, but it's considered a small city. Um, and here you would have, apart from language, if the girl doesn't have a very good English, you would have a bit of an issue. But no, most girls are okay with dating a guy. Now, dating and marrying are completely different things. You'll be the secret. You'll be the guy that they date, but they don't want to bring home to their parents
Ooh,
for a
mysterious.
long time.
Right.
Um, when you have proven your worth, they might bring you home and introduce you to their parents
Ah,
because
okay.
yeah,
It's about honor.
it's yeah, the whole idea of staying virgin until marriage and things like that is important to them. But also, the idea of marrying a foreigner is complicated for their culture because if you marry an American, for example, um, when he gets fed up with China, which happens a lot, what's going to happen? He's going to take their daughter. remember, one child policy away from China. So families are not too keen on that scenario, on that perspective, right?
Yeah.
And the other thing is that, well, here, this has changed quite a bit, but in the past or the previous generation, children were supposed to help their parents in their later years, right? When they're getting older, they're supposed to support their parents. So if the daughter is going to be living in America, how is she going to look after the parents when they're older? So there's always been a bit of opposition to marry a foreigner, regardless of country, right? So they much rather the girl marries a local boy, a local guy who is not going to take off and leave with the daughter. So you understand it a little bit more now.
Definitely.
Right.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
makes
it
sense.
makes
They're
sense.
much more bound by family tradition, it seems.
Yeah, the
Correct.
culture, the tradition,
Mm-hmm.
family, that sort of thing.
Right.
Correct.
Interesting. Okay, I had no idea, but yes, I was aware of the one-child policy out there.
This is what I love to do on my YouTube channel. I love to talk about the things that people don't think about, that people haven't thought about because,
Right.
well, they haven't been out here. So I'm very, very thankful for this opportunity, and I hope that your listeners get a different view. I mean, I'm not trying to justify things. I'm just trying to explain things to people. You know what I
Understood.
mean?
Yeah.
Do people maybe there might be some people that you've spoken to in the country who have lived there all their lives. Do some of the people have a problem with the one child policy? Do they feel that it's unfair?
Well, there's solutions to that. What they usually do, men, right? Particularly wealthy men, is they find lovers and they have two or three families because it's the one child per family or per woman, basically.
Oh,
Right.
okay.
So they'll go
So is
find
that
other girls.
accepted? Is that
No,
accepted
no,
by
no,
other
no.
women? No, right?
Well, it's difficult to say because I'm not in their shoes, but I've heard of stories of people who say that the ladies know. So it's how to say, like the main wife, as long as you provide, as long as
Right.
you you respect her and support her family and do all those things, many times they will turn a blind eye. Many times. Not always, not all of them, but it is quite a common
That
thing.
was my next question. When you get to the part of not always, is there consequences to pay? Does a man end up going to jail if he has, let's say, three or four wives with one child in each family?
I'm not aware of that. Well, what I know is that this was something that a lot of the Taiwanese people were doing. When China opened up, right? Hong Kong and Taiwanese people just flooded in and started factories all over the place and started raking millions and millions of dollars. So they became rich very quickly. And being away from their, well, the original place, right? Either Hong Kong or Taiwan, it was very easy for them to have mistresses. So that's what I say that it was kind of like accepted. As far as legal stance and where they stand before the law is clear. You can't have two or three wives. Bigamy is not allowed in China. Doesn't mean people don't do it. So I don't have a straightforward answer. All I know is that bigamy is not allowed. So there.
Right. Yeah, that
Understood.
I'm sorry. That I'm just saying that was my question is whether or not people are actually opposed to that. Yeah, I'm sure there's a way to ways to get around it, like you mentioned, having affairs, but in a legitimate way. I'm assuming
No.
people must be a little bit upset that they can't have more than one child.
Yes, some families, and particularly when the first child was a woman, because they felt, okay,
They
now
want men.
they want a man, yeah. They
Yeah.
want a boy, and that's why, for example, they wanted to try with another woman. There was another motivation, perhaps, at some point to find a mistress or somebody else to have a child with. Um, so yeah, the one-child policy affected many of the decisions that they made in terms of family and relationships for a very
Damn.
long time.
Right. My goodness. And now I'm curious, what about adoption? What is that like out there? How is that perceived by the Chinese?
again, without being Chinese and without knowing anybody who has adopted, but I can tell you that my feeling is that it's not something that they're too
Fond of.
inclined to do. Yeah,
Okay,
they're not
yeah,
inclined to adopt.
I see.
Um, they will try different forms. There's also sometimes people who have two children during the time of the one child policy. So what they would do is they would kind of like find a family for the second child, maybe an uncle, maybe, somebody who
Right,
could
right.
put them under what is called the hukou. The hukou is like a registration book, a family registration book. This comes from decades ago, but still prevalent here. It includes all the members of the family, and it includes your residence, and it includes all the information that is important to know and monitor the population of China, which was growing so fast, right? So that is something that some people used to do. So you ask people, okay, where's your dad? Oh, this is my dad, but this is my biological dad. What do you mean? Yeah, he raised me. I'm under his hukou, but this is my real dad. I'm like, what? So people look
Right.
for workarounds.
My goodness. And now I'm curious, Fernando, do you recall where you first were when you were informed about the coronavirus?
Hmm. Yes, I was, as I said, I was celebrating Chinese New Year. I went with my best friend here, a Portuguese, and his Chinese wife, and my wife as well. We went to a place called Foshan, to a hotel just to spend the night and have some fun. And all of a sudden, we were notified that they needed to take our temperatures and that there was a virus and blah, blah, blah. And we're like, what? And then they told us that they were going to lock down the city. It was a city like about an hour from here, and that if we wanted to get back to Dongguan, we'd have to leave 10 o'clock in the morning. Like, all right. So our short holiday, like a small getaway, 2, 3 days, was cut short, and we had to drive back to Dongguan, and we were given a few hours to get groceries and stock up and stuff, and that's it. We entered lockdown. It was a soft lockdown for us down here in the south for particular reasons. If you want me, I can explain a little bit
Yeah,
further.
go ahead. The floor is yours.
Well, the thing is, during Chinese New Year, well, the area around the coast, Guangzhou, Guangdong, this province has a very high number of floating population. It means people come from other provinces in the inner side of China to work out here. During Chinese New Year is the only time that they have to go back and visit their families, right? So these cities, they absolutely they're empty during Chinese New Year. So from a population of 10 million, we go down to 1,800,000 over Chinese New Year here in Dongguan. And the same happens for in Guangzhou, Shenzhen, Zhuhai, all the province. The population goes down to 10%, 15% of what it normally is on a normal month.
That's
So
amazing.
there were no people here. There were very few people here, and everybody was in their hometowns. So it made it quite easy or effective. Let's not say easy, but at least effective to keep people in place and to lock down a whole city of Wuhan. Let me explain. A city like Guangzhou has 20 million people. Imagine locking down that city and having to provide essential services to 20 million people. All over China, cities are huge. So the lockdown in Wuhan was extreme, but the lockdown in cities that had fewer people was not as strict. So me, for example, I
Right.
was able to go out uh, anytime I wanted out of my residence, which is called a garden here. I could go to supermarket. I wasn't really in lockdown, but people were suggested to stay in. Yeah, we
Right.
were. It was a recommendation, but I had no issues going out, me personally, down here in the South, because we were so few people, and it was very unlikely that we had any contact with the people in Wuhan.
That's interesting. So it wasn't
Mhm.
that big of a deal out there in your province.
Well, yeah, and as I said, most provinces along the coast, they get this phenomenon, right? It's called the Chinese Exodus. Like every Chinese New Year, millions and millions of people leave the big cities to go back to their hometowns inland. So it happens every year. So that's one of the videos that I made. I mean, a lot of people were making videos about, oh, my city is deserted. Well, it's like that every freaking year. So shut up, like
Yeah.
you're not showing us anything unusual. It happens every year, without denying that yes, Wuhan was strictly locked down, and some other places around the Wuhan area were locked down very strictly. But the rest of China is normally like that during Chinese New Year.
Yeah,
Very
I
interesting.
recall Chinese New Year being around that time when the outbreak first started out there. It happened like a day after, I think, right?
25th, yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, it's pretty
Yeah.
wild stuff. And I'm sorry to hear that your facilities have also been affected by COVID 19.
Well, yeah, my businesses, because well, there's a couple of things. We we started a new branch. We opened a new branch. We decorated it, built it, and we're ready to go. Uh, Theoretically, we were going to start on February 15th. So yeah, we haven't been able to teach a single lesson since January 15, as I mentioned.
Right.
So yeah, we've been paying rent in these three locations, paying staff, paying all these things, and no money coming in. So um, I spent some of my savings to develop this new branch, to build it and set it up. And so it caught me with my pants down, basically. I mean,
Yeah, that sucks,
uh,
man. I'm sorry to hear that.
so I ran my numbers, my Excel sheets, and I figured out that I could only afford to stay open until April 15th, and it became accountant. Like I was running against the clock and seeing whether we were going to reopen, but it meant, I mean, a lot of people say like, aren't you angry? Like, who am I going to be angry at? I mean, it is what it is. I understand the necessity, the it would be stupid to reopen right now. You know what I mean? You can expect high school kids to be mindful of where they place their hands and their sanitation and hygiene and all those things, but you can expect a 5-year-old to be mindful of those things. So I understand, and well, losing my business is one of the consequences of this situation, but yeah, you move on,
Yeah,
I'm no stranger to bankruptcies.
understood. And as of today, what are the plans going forward for you? Will you try to, let's say, teach perhaps remotely?
Well, there are a couple of things. First of all, because of the way I set up my business, I pay rent 6 months in advance.
Oh,
So
shit.
rent is
Yeah,
paid.
right.
All those rents are paid. So if they say, reopen tomorrow, then all I would have to do is I would start teaching myself, but how can I teach at three locations? But I would start looking for teachers that are here available. That's another interesting thing there. The supply of teachers has just dwindled. So go out, try to find teachers and try to train them in my method and get them to work. That is one possibility. The truth of the matter is that teaching online, teaching remotely, is it's not the same.
Of course not.
It's a
Yeah.
it's a game of keeping the kids interested, and you have to have a certain setup to do that. You have to have the cartoons and the videos and the music and the puppets. We don't have any of that. No, and I don't have any experience in doing that. So for me, transitioning to teaching online
That's going to be
will be a
hard.
really complicated thing, will be an expensive endeavor, and it would take some time. And on the other hand, there are already giants out here in China doing online teaching. So you'll be competing with freaking Alibaba that has online presence, right? So it's kind of like an exercise in futility. I don't see the point of me moving in that direction. I'm doing a couple of lessons here and there, people
Okay.
who request special courses, but no, no, it's not looking positive for me in terms of teaching. So, as you asked, what am I planning to do? I've I dove straight into the the deepest side of the pool, and I'm dedicating myself to YouTube and creating content and videos and all these things. So hopefully, it's gonna take off.
I hope so,
And
man. I hope so. You know, life has changed drastically here in the States and around the world. And of course, health experts firmly believe that we will see a second wave out here. And
mm,
yeah, what's going on out there right now? I'm sure you guys have gone past that route already.
sure, when everything started, okay, 15 days. Okay, 15 days. We can close ourselves for 15 days. Everybody can stay inside for 15 days. Okay, let's do this. And then after 15 days, like, okay, but the people in this province and that province, they didn't close up at the same time. So, okay, it's another week. Okay, another 15 days. And it just kept going. But at the end of that Chinese New Year break, right, that 3 weeks, month, we were all still locked up. And that's when people started moving back to the cities, right? So there was a bit of a spread again because, well, asymptomatic people would travel with the virus and spread it around to the rest of China. That's when you saw numbers going up around China, not so centralized, not so localized. That's mid-February. That's also when people started flying out of China into other countries. That's also when some foreigners started coming back into China. So people call it the second wave, but what we're saying is when people start mobilizing, when people start moving from one place to another, they are potentially carrying viruses, right? So when people left the lockdown after a month, the viruses spread throughout China. The virus is spread to other places around the world, people flying out. And well, countries out there were allowing people in without the proper checks, without the proper precautions, and it went in. You know what I mean? It got into other countries and it got real bad over there. And then some of those foreigners started flying back. So it's like it's not so much as a second wave. I would probably say it's a third wave.
Third wave, okay.
Because
Interesting.
the second wave was when it left China. That's probably what I would call the second wave. It entered other countries. That's the rake of this first wave. And well, China has closed the borders. Now, anybody who's coming in, this was March 28th. Anybody who was coming in would have to go into quarantine, and they've kept it under control. Now, the second wave that you speak of is probably has to do with what is taking place in Guangzhou, which is about half an hour from where I live. Is that correct?
I believe so.
So let's talk about the situation in Guangzhou.
Yes,
Um,
let's go there. By the way, for those that don't know, on your YouTube channel, you have been covering what's been going on out there in Guangzhou. We've been reading all sorts of stories of Africans and Nigerians being kicked out of hotel rooms, and of course, we saw that because of Twitter. And I'm glad you're here to shed some light on the situation that's going on out there. Go ahead, Fernando.
sure. I'm not going to make the mistake that I made on my video. So the
Ah,
first thing that I'm going to say out here is that there is an element of racism in what we're seeing. That's clear. That's obvious, and it shouldn't be. I feel for the people who are suffering this. Having said that,
Hold on. Can you be
yeah,
a little bit more specific on that comment? What do you mean by there's some racism as a result of this virus? Can you explain that, please?
sure. There is a cluster in the city of Guangzhou, like a neighborhood called Xiaobei, where think of it as a Chinatown in the U.S., but for African countries. So it's like an African community, is the largest African community outside of Africa in the world. So it's not a small place, it's not a small community. And they are clustered in this area. What happened was they discovered a few cases of COVID-19 there. So the government freaked out and they started to test everybody and quarantine everybody. So we're going to go into detail about that, but you can imagine the reaction of the government like, oh shit, we have a cluster of people And there are some cases of COVID-19 here. What do we do?
And those people weren't Chinese, is what you're saying.
Yes, they were mostly Africans. So obviously, the word got out, and Chinese people, a lot of Chinese people associate, okay, so if they're African, then if you're black, you're African. And if you're African, you might have been exposed to COVID-19. Oh shit, here comes the next wave. That's like the connection that a lot of Chinese people make in their minds, right?
Right.
So whether you are a white African, whether you are a black Canadian, that's the connection that they make. African, there's a chance that you have COVID-19 because they all live so close together. So if you're African or if you're black, that's the connection that they're making. Again, let me be clear, not everybody, but some people, some Chinese people.
Yes,
so,
I saw that, by the way. For those that don't know, we were only seeing these videos on social media like Twitter. Chinese people were blaming Africans and Nigerians for bringing the virus to China.
Isn't that strange?
Well, here's an interesting fact. A lot of the African people who live in this cluster didn't leave the country. They stayed in the country. Very few flew back from Africa. Now, here's where a lot of people argue with me, and I like to play a game of one. Okay, it's a known fact that there are illegal people in every country.
Of course.
Is that an incorrect assumption?
No, not at all. You're right.
For many countries.
Right.
So it would be fair to say that there is at least one illegal African in this community. That's a fair assumption.
Sure.
So let's think about an illegal person, right? An illegal person doesn't want to be in any database, doesn't want to be in any list, doesn't want to be registered anywhere. So an illegal person, that one theoretical illegal person, is going to try and hide, doesn't want to be tested, doesn't want to be, right? If the cops are coming to your room, you're gonna escape the quarantine or you're self-quarantine because you don't want to be detected. So this one theoretical person shows us the behavior that we're seeing. You extrapolate that to well, hundreds or dozens, yeah, and that's what you're seeing. People behaving in a way that is not what you would expect that's from somebody who is open and ready to cooperate with authorities. So this led to some animosities and some videos that we see out there. For example, the evictions.
I've seen that.
People
yes.
People getting kicked out of the apartments. We have to also look at the Chinese side. People say racism, and I say I'm not sure if that's necessarily racism, because if I'm a landlord and I rent to a black person, does that make me racist?
No,
it's the opposite, right? If I'm racist, I won't rent to a black person.
Correct.
So this
Mm-hmm.
landlord rents this apartment to a person, right? A black person. This black person then brings in, for example, some of his friends to live there, but they're not registered. They're not legal there. If the landlord knows, the landlord is a bad agent, is a bad actor in this scenario, right?
Right.
So it's like, okay, I turn a blind eye to the situation, whatever. This is the same for small hotels. So when the government decides to cordon the area and start looking door by door, like what's going on here, well, now the landlord is like, oh shit, I've broken the law.
Yeah.
So you guys need to get out.
I see.
I'm
Okay.
trying to explain the situation. I'm not saying every single case is like this, but I'm saying this is the most logical explanation to what is happening. The Chinese guys don't want to get caught. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't want to get in trouble.
People that they shouldn't be renting to.
Exactly.
Or hotels don't want to be caught allowing people with overstayed visas, for example, to stay in their hotels. So they all like, shit, how do I cover my back? How do I cover
Right.
my ass? They
Hmm.
start kicking people out. Is that legal? No. Is that fair? No. Is that right? No. Does that explain what we're seeing? I hope it does.
But then again, is it fair and right for an illegal immigrant to come into any country and then start bringing his friends into a place where he's supposed to be living under the trust of a landlord who's supposed to, say, hey, look, I know it's just you're living here, and all of a sudden you got all these friends coming. So yeah, there is like you kind of get that fear that you've just screwed up by letting somebody who's already illegal move into your place and then bring their friends in. So the last place I'd want to be in jail would be China.
Well, of course. I mean, you can do that here, but
And
you
here's
can't
another
mess with the
thing,
government
guys. When
there.
when when you think about jail, one of the issues is that they didn't want to be tested.
Ah, okay.
This a lot of the people, again, a lot of them or some of them, you quantify it however you want. Let's say this hypothetical guy, right?
Right, right.
He doesn't want to be tested. How do and he's illegal, right? So how do we know where to put him? Do we put him in a quarantine cell, or do we put him with the regular population? If he doesn't want to be tested, how do we know where to put him?
Are you asking that as a hypothetical question, or
No,
are
I'm
you
asking.
asking? If I had to answer that question, I would say this as a government official: if you're in the country illegally, there are processes to come into countries, and it's not just China or America or even uh, your
Colombia,
country, Colombia as
Colombia.
well. Every country has its own process for bringing in immigrants. If you're going to come in illegally and not have papers, and then turn down a medical facility for not wanting to take your temperature or a test for this COVID-19 virus. I mean, that's kind of waving a big red flag. Yeah, I would say that'd be a problem. I would
Just
probably, if it were up to me, I'd probably ship them back to their country.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, when this theoretical person starts to oppose testing, you don't know what to do with him as an authority. You're like, okay, I can't put you in jail, um, because you're gonna get everybody sick. If you are, I don't know if you are, but
Right, that's
if
the
we
thing.
have,
He's refusing to get the test, and at the same time, an illegal immigrant. You know,
so some of the videos that were put out there by some African YouTubers were like, oh, it's illegal testing. Like, explain to me how that is illegal, first of all. And second of all, it's not. The government has released on WeChat, which is like the social media here that everybody has, um, the basically the constitution, the rules and the laws of China, and said like you can't oppose authorities when they're trying to control a pandemic.
yeah.
So it's not illegal. So people are there on YouTube channels or sometimes even on African news. It's illegal testing. Like,
Ugh.
eh,
Yeah.
Everybody's got an opinion on social media.
What's interesting is that we
Everybody becomes
see,
a journalist or a critic or a reporter. They all got the answers.
yeah,
is the days we live in.
yeah, and what we see on social media, I mean, we only see one part of the video and we don't get, we don't get every
Right,
side of the story. We're only seeing what they want us to.
right.
Sure. Are they wrongful evictions? I am sure there are. Are there evictions like people trying to cover their ass? I'm sure there are. Are there evictions because I mean, this is another aspect that I talked in one of my videos. I'm I'm middle class. I'm okay, right? I don't need to worry about breakfast tomorrow. But I've been 3 months without income, right?
Yeah, that's heavy.
Is it a stretch? Is it a stretch to think that some people are struggling financially?
Sure.
Is it a stretch? No, it isn't. So is it possible that this hypothetical person hasn't paid rent, hasn't been able to pay rent, if his livelihood depends on, well, whatever parallel trade he's doing, for example? Is it a stretch? No, it isn't. So perhaps some of those evictions are legal. right? Like you haven't paid rent for a month or 2 months. Hey, you need to move out. Um, so
I don't understand though. However, I'm sorry to butt in here, but I don't understand how you were sort of labeled a quote unquote racist for conveying what you just said here.
because you hear what you want to hear.
Ah,
You
Well,
hear what
that's
you want to hear.
right.
Um,
definitely.
I agree with that.
like it's and it's also my fault. I mean, I said it in one of my latest videos. I mean, when you see racism, you should call it out. Um, and I used a very quiet voice to say, yes, there's racism, but let me explain why this can be. Do you know what I mean? So
I see. It was
I
the way
went
you
towards
said it.
it was, yes, the way I said it and the way I did not balance things. Um, and look, to me, everybody was piling on China. Everybody was attacking China. I'm like, wait. I mean, yes, are there racist Chinese people? I'm sure there are. I've seen them in my classroom. I've seen Chinese kids acting in racist ways. So of course there are. But is every Chinese person racist? And
Well,
is the government enacting a racist policy? That's a very important thing. I mean, you're talking about an official mandate that essentially is racist. That's a difficult one to believe that is possible. Is it
Right.
impossible? No, but I'm like, well, I don't know. Thinking about the international and the global stand of China, would they do something like that?
I think that's the last thing to worry about. I mean, just in my opinion, based on what's going on in the world right now, uh, there's a little bit of racism in every country, and no liberal PC person's gonna stand up and fix it. It's just the way it is. It's always been like that since the dawn of time. That's just how people are.
So as long as I am true to myself, as long as what I am measured with my voice, and this is one of the things that I am very careful. I have a video called Racial Linguistics, the language of racism. I try to be very cautious by not generalizing things that all Chinese and they're all, I just, that's why I have this hypothetical one person. I think that that's a good exercise because COVID-19 is a problem of one person. It started with one person getting infected, right? And that person brought it to other people. So it starts with one. Let's think about this one person. So as long as I'm true to myself and I do due diligence, then I'm okay with whatever hate I'm getting, and it's fine. I mean, again, you can't please everybody,
No.
and
So you experienced some of that being a foreigner there. A Laoway.
a lot why, yeah,
Lao, yeah.
um,
Yes.
low why,
Laowai. Okay.
well, I joke about the fact that I have a big black dog, so whenever I get in an elevator, people freak out. No, really, I get in an elevator and people are like, holy shit,
They're all
like, let
scared.
me get out.
Oh my
Yeah, they
goodness.
run away from me in every
Wow.
single situation on a daily basis. And I've had big black dogs for the last 15 years. So
That's a
You
deterrent.
racist, you.
people run away from me on a
They're
daily basis.
they're
So
scared of you.
it's kind of like the way it is for
That's
me.
funny.
But other people out there, yes, they are experiencing, and this is another thing that I mentioned in my videos. Um, it's not really about race because two of my teachers, they were South African, but they're white, and they were also tested and quarantined here in Dongguan. So how do you explain the racism there? It's just a question. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Well,
Hmm.
you could call it by a Caucasian being in a country that's Asian. I mean that's pretty simple in my outlook on if you're going to say how can it be racist, it's simple. It's an immigrant who's a Caucasian from another country in the country that's Asia, an Asian country, and that obviously people are gonna call out those who are not from their country.
I was trying to draw attention to some things that didn't add up. For example, there was a video of a black man saying that he was allowed to quarantine in his home. He was not evicted. I'm like, why? Why wasn't that black man from Africa not evicted? Perhaps everything was in the up and up with him.
Yeah.
I mean, Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand.
S- so it's and because you don't have facts, you only have possible reasons, probable reasons, logic on your side. Um, you're wide open for attacks, of course.
Absolutely, absolutely. And by the way, I mentioned you. I heard you mention mixed martial arts rather in China, and
Yeah.
I was curious about the scene out there. But going back to the racism angle, and this is going to tie in together. I've been a follower of mixed martial arts for over 10 years, maybe even longer than that, to be honest with you. And I know a lot about Japanese MMA out there. And through the
Hmm.
years, their perception of black fighters out there, it hasn't exactly been very good. Their portrayal of them have been pretty bad, especially in commercials. And I'm talking specifically about an organization called Pride FC, which was very popular out there. And that tanked thanks to the Yakuza. But there were plenty of videos with black fighters, and they weren't exactly shown in the proper light, and they weren't portrayed in the most proper way either out there.
What
So,
were they doing, Michael? What were
well,
they
I
doing?
mean, they would portray them as like monkeys.
No way, really?
Well, yeah.
There was a photography exhibit out here, not in my city, but here in China. I saw it on an African channel. I follow a guy called Wodamaya, and he showed a video. There was a photography exhibit where they had animals next to black people. Like you had, for example, a monkey and a black person. You had a puma and a black person. And that was the whole exhibit, just black people next to animals.
My goodness.
So, look, is there insensitivity? Well, of course.
Of course,
Should
yeah.
they be called out? Of course. Look, in my last podcast, I don't know if you guys watched it. We
I
were
saw
talking
some
about
of it.
racism in China,
Hmm.
and we were talking about um, a a lot of the people that I work with are people that are educated, well off, um, that have traveled the world, that should know better, but you still see racist behavior from them. So they need to be called out. They need to be, um, what? I'm not going to say the word re-educated because that would send us in a different rabbit hole, but
Yes.
but they should be taught a lesson. And I think that um, China has a very, very long way in that particular department if it is to be the leader of the world one day, which they are very much set out to be. You you can't have this view of the world and view of its people that is so 100 years ago, so backwards. So you do see racism out here. That's for sure.
Definitely. And that's pretty prominent in most Asian countries, to be honest with you.
That's pretty prominent in every country. There's
Well, I'm talking
racism
about,
in every single
well, no
country.
shit, but I'm talking about specifically Asian countries right now, not everywhere else. And
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah.
yes,
Well, then
that's what I'm
definitely.
specifying here. But yes, going back to MMA really quickly
Yeah.
here, you also brought up Joe Rogan, and you brought up a microphone issue there. And you were wondering if they cleaned their microphones there. And I got to tell you, I've owned the Shure SM7B before, and I hate that fucking mic, by the way. It sounds like
That's
shit.
what you're listening me through.
Well, you sound good, but I mean, for me personally, because of my voice, it just,
Yeah.
you got to understand, ladies and gentlemen, when I say I don't like it, I mean, it just doesn't fit my voice, and that's what my complaint is. But going back to what you were saying, I don't think they clean those microphones at all, by the way.
I mean, somebody replied to my video and said, like, yeah, they just replaced the phone, which is $30 for every podcast. And I'm like, well, if somebody can afford that, it's Joe Rogan, but do they really?
I don't think they do, man. I can't say that for sure because I don't know, but I am under the assumption that they don't change the foam screen at all, or the windscreen rather.
And I think that it's something, I don't know if anybody had thought about that before. So we're like, hey, it just popped in my mind and I wanted to have it on a video. Because now we're doing podcasts. We use the Rode Pod mic, or
Right.
mic pod, something like that, which has that metal grill.
Hmm.
So now we're thinking, okay, if we're gonna continue bringing guests,
You got to
what should we
clean it.
do? How can we
Yeah.
protect them?
Yeah. No, that's a fair question to ask, by the way. But I'm under the assumption that they probably don't.
Mhm.
They probably don't.
We need to put a mask on top of it and it look like a maxi pad or something.
You know, when I was a performer, one of the things that was mandatory for me whenever I did shows where the equipment was provided for the band, I always had the cover of the microphone taken off and sprayed down with Listerine or some sort of an anti like a disinfectant.
Yeah.
Because the last thing you want to do when you're on tour, singing especially, you don't want to get sick from somebody's microphone that has germs on it. So,
And
Definitely.
just thinking on the top of my head, imagine KTVs here, karaoke's. Holy crap.
Oh, yes. And by the way, thank you to Christina out there. But yes, back to the microphone issue. You know, it's a good mic for singing, the Shure SM7B. Now I'm thinking about it. It's a good microphone, but for broadcasting, for my voice, it's too flat for me.
yeah.
Everyone
There's other
has
ones for broadcasting.
Yeah, everyone has a preference. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, we couldn't afford the SM7B for everybody in our podcast, so we went for the cheaper version,
Well, that
which is
works.
fine.
Well, that works too.
Yeah, as long as
Yeah.
it works.
Yeah, as long as it sounds good and matches the voice, you're smooth to go. You know, it's all smooth sailing.
So yeah, you wanted to go back to MMA.
Yeah, what's going on out there?
We're releasing a new video in our podcast with a guy who is a promoter.
Oh shit!
And
Okay.
he does boxing, and he's got something called the white collar fighting something. I
Oh,
forgot. Sorry.
it's okay.
He's a very interesting guy. He's an Australian guy, and he trains white collar people for a few months or whatever, and then he has an event where they get in the ring and they just smash the shit out of each other. It's fun, and they do it for charity, so it's not
Oh.
cheap. It's like everybody's wearing tuxedos and whatnot, and it's a really interesting thing. But this guy has a very interesting story, as I mentioned during the preparation, is that he's stuck in China. He can't leave the country.
Yeah, you can't leave.
Nope.
Damn, that's crazy.
He used to run gyms, and he sold one of the gyms, but apparently the person who bought it is now suing him because he said that he didn't have rightful ownership of the equipment in a gym. So one day he went to leave the country, present his passport, and they're like, no, sorry, you can't leave. You have some issues here. And well, he's been stuck in China for 3 years. A really interesting story. And
Crazy.
ever since, he's been hosting this white collar fights. So he's not stopping. Very interesting character.
Very nice, but I'm glad you gave us that update there because I was very curious. As everyone knows here, well, longtime listeners, you know, I've been following the sport. I've also been involved in the sport plenty of times. Was a bit of a sparring partner for a couple years myself.
Mm.
So I got beat up a little bit every now and then, but not
That
always.
explains the.
Not always, though. Not always.
No, this guy's pretty cool. I mean, he's worked also with UFC. When the UFC comes to China, basically Shenzhen, because it's in Shenzhen.
Reward.
We have taken our podcast mobile now. He was the announcer.
Oh,
He was the
okay.
announcer for UFC.
Okay. I didn't know that. Wow.
Hmm.
Very interesting. Very interesting. And of course, you do have another sort of podcast yourself. It's
Yeah,
a show called, you do it with a friend of yours, right? Called, of course, China.
correct. Yes, he's the editor and the owner, well, one of the partners of a magazine called Here. Basically, it's an English guide to people who come to the city. So it basically lists restaurants, hotels, and different activities and different events that are taking place around the city. And well, he's been doing that for 15 years. And through that time, he has made an enormous amount of connections. So I have the technical knowledge, the ability, the equipment. and he's got the connections and will the ability to interview people because that's basically what he does. And we decided, hey, one day we were driving. I said, like, why don't we do this? This hasn't been done here in China,
Right.
and our kind of like our ideas were aligned. So I said, like, yeah, let's do it. The interesting thing is that we were kind of enemies for about 10 years,
What?
and now we're working together.
What do you mean you were enemies? What happened?
Um,
Who'd
well,
you?
he started his magazine,
Oh,
and
okay.
he wanted all foreigners to advertise. So I said, okay, sure, I'll play some advertisements. But at one point, idiot me, right? I'm very young, I'm very stupid. I said, like, well, this magazine doesn't speak to my customers because it's in English. So why don't you have an article or two in Chinese, and I will continue advertising. So like, no, my magazine will only be in English, and I'm like,
Mm.
okay, so I'm not advertising. Um, a couple of people approached me, hey, why don't we start a magazine? I'm like, okay, but let's make it bilingual so that we actually capture the the larger base, right? So we
Right.
started a magazine, and that did not sit well with him. Um, and yeah, we had a very punctual incident that I don't want to go into,
Did you beat him
but yeah, we
up?
didn't
What
speak to
happened?
each other.
Did you fight him?
No, 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 no.
Okay, I'm
Look,
just curious.
I can't even fight my wife, man. No,
Oh.
I
And-
lose a fight to my cat. No, 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 no. I don't fight. I've never been punched in the face. That would be something. I
well,
don't know what that would be like.
there's a lot of
No.
domestic disputes right now, by the way, out here in California, all over the country, rather the nation. Lots of domestic incidents, rather, because of the
Because you're being
quarantine.
stuck.
Yeah, because they're
Yeah.
stuck. Lots of domestic
I got my
violence.
man cave, and then I just pop in here, start editing videos, so
Nice.
it
So
helps.
you got a way to get away
Uh,
from her. That's good.
so the thing with this guy was that, as I said in one of my videos, I'm a very righteous person. So he did something that I thought was wrong, and I called it out, kind of like in social media here in China. And oh my God, we split the the foreign community, people against me, people
Oh, I bet.
against him, and it went ugly. Never got physical, but it got ugly as in, and that's the problem with being right. When you're right, the other person has no redeeming position. You got to leave a person a way out. And at that time, I didn't do that.
Yeah,
When you're always right, the other person's always wrong. And that's not a comfortable position to be in, right?
absolutely. Absolutely.
So that's the issue with choosing being right over being nice. Remember, I said something like that in my video. That was my mistake. I went for the option of being right as opposed to being nice. So yeah, for about 9 or 10 years, we didn't talk to each other.
Damn.
And then a common friend brought us back together, and I started creating videos for him about 2 years ago. For his magazine and his channel. I also wrote for his magazine. So we got back together, in touch, sorry, like 2 years ago. And now we're doing
So
this.
And now you
so
guys are a
ultimately,
team.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mike.
I was just saying it. Now they are a team.
Yeah.
Now they're a team. And my question to that was ultimately this gentleman, I'm assuming he changed his ways after you called him out on social media.
I think it was a one-off thing, and I think that it taught him a small lesson, a lesson. I don't want to be take like the highway and ha ha ha. No, but
Yeah.
what he did was wrong, and whether it was a big thing or a small thing, I haven't seen him make that mistake again.
So do you think he changed? I mean, obviously you guys talk now and you're working with each other.
It's
So
interesting. We had a talk, and it was an uncomfortable talk for a few seconds, and said like, yeah, you know that was not the right thing to do, and he said, yeah, it could have been handled in a different way, and I'm like, you're probably right. All right, let's go, move on.
Yeah, you guys talked it out.
Yeah, like on a second or third day of shooting, because it was a thorn on each other's side. We've never actually talked about that incident. So we did talk it out, and now we're good.
Very good. Very good. I'm glad you guys talked it out. I mean, that's what it's all about. You know, I got to play this right here for you because you talked it out. You know, I'm sure you gave him a
Thank
big
you, Lynn.
hug afterwards, and now you guys are best friends till the end.
We're working together and it's great. So we have gotten to interview some very interesting people. Like just last Thursday, we did the Consul General of
Right.
Israel here
That's
in China.
yeah,
So
man. That's what
some
caught my attention right away. I was thinking the Israeli Consul General, former ambassador, uh, Mr. Louis,
yeah.
and I was baffled by that.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I mean, we know that we bring two different things to the table. I mean, I'm the Sherpa. I carry all my gear. We have 4 cameras, the podcast thing, the C stands, the lights, everything. I'm the guy, and I do all the editing and right. I do this part. His part is contacts, and he's got them. So that's great.
Wild stuff. How was that interview, by the way? I haven't got a chance to listen to that.
Well, that hasn't been published
Oh, it
yet. We
hasn't been
just
published yet.
shoot it.
Okay.
We just shot it last week, and it's gonna come out in a couple of weeks. Was interesting because he basically was very open. He also served in Colombia, which was also interesting. So we talked about
Yeah.
security. We talked about living in dangerous places. What's it like to be a diplomat? What's the life of a diplomat like? Stuff like that. So yeah, it was quite interesting. He talked a lot about the cooperation between Israel and China, and particularly the. I ask hard questions, and if he says no, I don't
Nice.
answer. Then he says no, I don't answer. But he was very, very candid. I said like, look, Israel is backed up by America 100%, right? Now Israel is leaning towards cooperating with China more and more.
Interesting.
How are you going to balance that out? Since now we are kind of like on opposite ends of like we pitted against each other, China and the US, for whatever reason. So
Oh,
how
would
is
you like to
Israel
know
going
the
to handle
reasons? I
this?
mean, there's a ton of reasons why America is taking this stance against China, and it's basically because they have been stealing from patents, copyrights, and registers for the last 70 years, and no one's done anything about it, and they've been getting away with it for all this time. They've been making just about every type of electronic based off the electronics that were created from in this country. Um, for example, Apple computer. Okay, in America we had Apple computers first. Then the Chinese stole the idea and created their version of a computer, the PC. Then you had the iPad, the iPhone, which became the iPads became tablets, iPhones became smartphones, and the list goes on and on and on. From camera equipment to cars, things that were invented in America were then with patents were then being created in China and sold to Americans for less money because they're being made for less money. So that was the big issue with China and America, and that they were basically cleaning up. That's why there's been such a big issue with America and China lately.
Sure, I would like to take you one step back. Who told the corporations to come and make things here?
Who told what corporations to make things where?
The camera manufacturers, the phone manufacturers, the computer
Oh, I
manufacturers.
can answer that too. Most of the Americans, the owners of these corporations went to China to get these things made cheaper, manufactured cheaper. So yeah, I know where you're going with that, but I mean, let's face it. I mean, they have overstepped just about every boundary with patents, particularly
Sure.
patents and copyrights.
Sure, but that should have been handled here in America rather than
But it
out
wasn't.
there.
That's why it is now.
And
That's
that's
why
why
I'm saying
things
this is
are
for the first time in
pretty
like
strange.
70 years.
Yeah,
Like
well,
a lot of the animosity towards China has to do, well, yes, with the IPs and the idea that they stole the jobs, and that the use of language is what matters most in this particular case, because who stole American jobs? It was the corporations, the guys who were going for the profits, the guys who were ready to please the shareholders and went for higher margins by bringing things to Asia, and that started in the 70s. So
Well,
um,
what about the drugs? What about fentanyl? I mean, did you know anything about the how can I put this? They, from what we've been told
But
out here,
fentanyl is still very new, Mike. It's
oh,
not.
I
It
know, I
did.
know,
They didn't come back
but
in the 70s.
no, 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 no. What I'm getting at is how the Chinese black market has sold multiple types of opioids, to the black market to make money off of it, as well as the medical industry itself. They seized, I think I've mentioned this multiple times on the radio here, they've seized 32,000 pounds of fentanyl being shipped into America from a Chinese ship that was coming in, with the crates on it. But that's just one of the topics that I'm bringing up. That there's been so many, from what I understand, it's been an unconventional war with China, claiming to want to control as a superpower in the world. And the one thing that stands in the way of China is America. And so they've, from what we understand, they've been maneuvering around certain things in order to get to a next level. And it's from what I've heard on the news and other accounts, it's been drugs, it's been electronics, it's been vehicles, among other things that have been manufactured in order to push ahead in the economic role of China. I hope I said that right.
No, 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 no. It's all very clear, and I agree with you to a large extent. The one thing that we're missing out here is that whatever China makes money, legally or illegally, somebody's making money in America as well.
Of course.
I
No
mean, if
doubt.
fentanyl is being shipped, it's because somebody is handling over there.
Well, yeah,
And
if
that
it's
could go
black
to very
market
high
though,
Well,
places.
let me ask
That
you
could go to
this,
very
Mike.
high
Really,
places.
let me ask you.
you're
Let me ask
absolutely right.
both of you this: where do you think opium comes from, Mike?
Afghanistan.
Well, you don't see them. You don't have those fields here, obviously. So we have to interject somehow. We do this. Everyone has a black market, Mike,
Oh, I get that. I understand it. But here's what I'm getting at with the whole opioid thing.
and cocaine and
I
heroin.
believe, hang on, what was that?
I said heroin and cocaine. We also get
I
that too in large
I wanted
quantities.
to get
I
to
get
I
that.
wanted to get to Colombia
All,
and
all,
cocaine.
all,
Yeah.
I,
Yeah, we're
all I'm
getting
trying
there.
to say, hang on, guys, one second. All I'm trying to say is that the thing with wait, I'm just totally got lost. What were we just talking about? Uh,
Uh, Go ahead and continue about
I
cocaine, by the
said
way.
I said that
oh,
if
where
China
it
is doing
comes from.
something illegal, somebody is also benefiting in the
Right.
States.
And Michael said it comes from, Afghanistan. Well, I know that, but back in the early days of I believe it was the 20th century, in the early 1900s, England had pushed the opioid epidemic on China, and China had a huge epidemic of people hooked on heroin or smoking opium. And it's almost as if they're pushing that on America now with the fentanyl and other types of opioids that they're pushing. They are a very large producer of medications, in all various types. Um, but it seems that they were pushing a lot more, and the conspiracy is that they were trying to get a lot of Americans hooked on drugs. I'm not just saying it's just them. It's also the Afghanistans. It's also the terrorists in the Middle East. Pushing the drugs. And it's not just America. It's
It's all
all
about
over the world.
supply and demand, by the way, Mike.
Right.
So I mean,
Yeah, I
you could
mean
say all that,
that's
but
what
I
we used to
mean,
say in Colombia.
you could
That's what we
say
used to say
that.
in Colombia. We don't consume
Yeah,
it, we sell it.
exactly. I mean, you could say anything you want, but there's always supply and demand.
Oh, I
It's not
get
like
it.
they're bringing it here because it's free. I mean, there's
Oh,
someone
I
that
know.
wants supply and demand, and well, when someone wants something, they're going to get it. It's the way it
Look, man, I'm
works.
I'm not debating that.
Oh, I'm
I'm
not
not
debating you
debating it.
either. I'm just telling you what's going down.
Why aren't you debating me? Come on, man.
No, I'm not debating you. No, I'm
No, I
on your
mean,
side. I agree with you.
let's get back to intellectual property, if you may. Um, Chinese, when I started teaching Chinese adults here at factories and companies, I used to tell them like, look, you guys know how to make everything. You can copy anything. It's a skill that you've got. You've mastered it. I'm talking 2003, 2004, and I said, like, look, the day that you guys develop your own creativity, your own ingenuity, your own way of creating things, you're going to be unstoppable. And what you're seeing is a lot of that is starting to take place. So, um, yes, there's IP theft, there's a lot of that going on, but there's also a lot of products that are being developed from scratch here in China. And because they have the advantage of cheap manufacturing and experiencing manufacturing, they're becoming very strong competitors. So it's changing over time towards developing the creativity of Chinese engineers, Chinese designers. Uh, in time, there will be other countries copying what China is doing.
Such as?
Think about drones, for example. DJI. DJI is a Chinese company. They make the best drone in the world, and America has been trying to develop a new drone that has half the functionality and half the ability and costs 2 times the price of a Mavic Pro, for example. So there's that disconnect between having an idea, having a project, having an engineering solution, and the manufacturing. You could have all that in America, but if you make it in California, it's going to cost a fortune. So that's how corporations sold America out.
And I understand that. What
China
really?
China now has both things together. China has the manufacturing, and they're slowly developing their own engineering creativity, like AI, for example. AI is just to a level
It's
that
advanced out there, yeah.
yes, I we want to bring a guy into a podcast, a guy who does uh, surveillance. Basically, that's what he does.
Nice.
But the applications are different. The applications are basically for productivity, sorry, blah, 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 productivity.
Right.
So there's a camera and it's gonna check your posture, for example, if you're slouching, so if you're not standing up when the customer comes in, if you're not, like, things like that. For vehicles, cars, are you falling asleep? Are you closing your eyes? Are you not paying attention to the road?
Right.
So a lot of that stuff, it's being designed, manufactured, and sold from here. So yes, I agree with you, Mike, that there is an issue with IP theft. Now, we should also agree that that is changing, that China is. Could they do more? Yes, but they're doing something about it. And the most important thing that they're doing is they're developing their own intellectual property products. That's what I can tell you from out here, from Dongguan, the manufacturing uh, capital of the world, basically.
Yes, and of course, in America, there has been a lot of discussion about some sort of tracking device, an app, and I understand China has already implemented such a tracking system app already. Do you know
Yes.
anything about that, by the way?
Well, I don't know about a specific one. I know what's out in the public. WeChat, for example, with this COVID-19. So
Right.
you have this QR code. This QR code basically is a tracking device. That's what it is.
And how do you feel about that?
Look, it's like, okay, I think that people can go ahead and call me sheeple, but I'm saying, look, surveillance provides a very important service, which is keep people safe, right? If you think about 9/11, Patriot Act, all that surveillance, Snowden, all that surveillance is there because it's needed to protect the population, to protect people. How you use it or abuse it is the problem, right? So right now, for example, we have this tracking thing that allows the government to know where you've been. So if there's a case of COVID-19 at the supermarket, well, they can look at all the log and see who went into the supermarket, visit them and say, hey, you're going to need to quarantine or take a test, blah, blah, blah. So it's a very powerful tool to protect people from COVID-19. If it's abused, is a very powerful tool to do nefarious things. So
especially in a communist country.
it's a double-edged sword, right? Um, the vast implementation of this tracker is more positive than negative. And it all comes down to how much you trust your government. In China, no, really, what else? I mean, you're giving somebody the power to monitor these kind of things.
Oh, I agree with you. Yeah, yeah.
America monitors you all the time, whether you want to accept it or not. China monitors us all the time, whether we want to accept it or not. What I'm trying to get to is that the level of trust that most Chinese people have in their government is very high, is extremely high. So is that a good thing or a bad thing? Well, for the government, it's great because they get to implement these things and the people believe them. People say like, okay, yeah, and they see that this is actually keeping us safe. Now, go to a country where the level of trust is very low and you ask them to do this. No, like, go fuck you, Mr. Government. I'm not going to give you my email. I'm not going to give you my phone number. I'm not going to give you my, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
So
agree.
the level
I
of
agree
trust
too.
in the government is what makes this work, in the sense that it was designed to be used. Can it be abused? Of course.
Of
Is that a
course.
scary thought? Of course.
And
We
here's the
see
problem.
it being abused.
And
Yeah.
here's the thing. You mentioned earlier Snowden, and yes, he revealed things that many of us had already suspected. You are constantly being monitored, especially here in America, and people are saying, "Well, I'm not going to sign up for this or that," and it's like, well, stupid. It's too late. You're already
Yeah, but I
being
thought that was the 5G, Michael.
well. Those people are stupid too. The thing is, as soon as you sign up for your phone or anything of that nature, you are already being tracked, and you already have submitted your rights right there and then.
You're on YouTube, you're on Facebook, you're on Twitter, I mean, you have to
You're already
you have to
connected.
read the fine print in
Yeah.
the terms and agreements, and that's it.
Well, people are stupid here in America. They don't realize that. They say, "Oh, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that." Well, it's like you don't really have a fucking choice, stupid.
Well,
You're already
yeah, but
sucked in. It's too late.
at the same time, it's those people who, let's just change the topic for a second. Instead of stupid people in America, let's talk about the criminals of America, whether it's high profile organized crime or just some thief. Let's face it, if you're going to do something that you know is illegal and is extremely incriminating that could put you away for life, you're probably not going to talk about it on a cell phone. You might not even own a cell phone. I mean, look how long Osama bin Laden lived without using any electronics. He used no cell phone, no computers, no telephone. He had people doing it. So there's that element that if you know that your phone and your computer are going to track you down to the government for whatever reason, then you're probably not going to use them.
It's you fail to see the commercial side of the of all this. Basically, the powers that be, particularly corporations, are very wealthy people. They've designed a society that is more keen to go for the comfort and the service and the convenience
Absolutely.
of certain things.
That's right.
And
That's right.
to go back to living without a mobile phone will be like stupid. Will be like you're the stupid one.
Oh
No,
yeah.
we have created, our generation and past generations have worked hard at creating a society that is satisfied with what we get from the government. So you have your Facebook and you think it's cool, and you do that poll and you do that quiz and you do that, answer these questions here and there, and you're giving
Right.
all your data.
Yep.
You're giving all your information.
Oh, I agree.
And what's the option? What is the option?
The only
The
option is
option
you
is
just
just living
you
like
don't
Osama
partake
bin
in it.
Laden in a cave.
Pretty
Well,
much,
no,
man.
not necessarily. Let's be honest here, because before pagers, before cell phones, answering machines, fax machines, computers, Twitter, all this nonsense, before that, we lived fine. We got by. Everybody did what they had to do, and we entertained ourselves by whatever means necessary. Now the entertainment is, I see kids walking down the street, their heads down, looking at a phone. Then the whole world is passing them by, and they'd rather look on a phone at what is virtual instead of reality. So it's not about how bad we would have it if we didn't have all these luxuries. Yeah, it makes life a lot easier, but at the same time, it's sort of taking away from our abilities to be social with each other.
I believe that this emanates from our inability to be content with what we have. We always want the new thing, the better thing, a new thing, whatever is new. The new phone, the new service, I mean, when is Facebook going down? What's going to replace it? When is
Right.
Twitter going to go down? What is going to replace it? We're unsatisfied. The main issue of our society is that once our needs are covered, we really get bored and get to want.
No doubt.
Yes, and I've been saying this since the quarantine. I've learned that there's lots of whiny people out there. I mean, we have it so good here in America, and all they wanted us to do was shelter in place, and we have all kinds of grown men crying like girls about it.
Yep.
I mean, you have all these luxuries here, with your cell phone and your TV and the Wi-Fi, and people are still bitching about
They're still
leaving
bitching
their
about it. You're
homes.
right.
It's sad. It's really pathetic, in my opinion.
We forget to see the people that are really struggling with this. Not only the people that have gotten sick, but also the people that are losing everything. Like myself, their businesses, their jobs, their money, their homes.
Yep, myself included.
If you can't pay your rent, well, the bank's not gonna, like, oh, it's fine, you can pay next month. No, you're gonna be foreclosed. You're gonna be. So it's tragic in so many ways, not just the health issue, but the financial issue.
Right.
Yep.
And when I see people complaining about, oh, but the Wi-Fi, oh, but I watch every Netflix, I just want to smack them in the face.
You and me both.
We're not in a third world nation. That's what I've been trying to tell a lot of these my fellow Americans out here who are crying about it. So sad and so desperate to go outside. It's ridiculous, really.
This is going to change the way we live. For one, and I think, Mike, you would agree with me, most economies are going to really, really focus on local, being self-sufficient, depending less on other countries. And that's going to affect China greatly, but I think it's necessary. It's necessary because you guys depending on masks, you guys depending on 90% of your pharmaceuticals being manufactured here.
That's right.
It shouldn't be like that.
And I agree. I have said this on the last show. We need to bring jobs back to America.
But then somebody's going to have to pay for those higher prices.
Exactly.
Right. And you know what? To both you guys, Fernando said it perfectly before. Who were the people who left American manufacturing to get a better price? Those people,
corporations.
50, 60, 70, 80 years ago, as they started going, well, probably more like 70 years ago, but as they started going to places like China, Taiwan, Japan, Mexico, all these other places to have their creations manufactured for less a price and again, I got a serious problem with where they send it to countries where it's like slave labor. Okay. You're paying a penny to get sneakers made and you're selling them for $70, $80 here. So yeah, those people back then that left the country well, not left it, but went to other places to have cheaper manufacturing, they created this.
Pretty much.
They screwed this up.
Look, if you step back, why do they do that? Higher profit margins.
Exactly.
Higher profit margins to satisfy who? The shareholders. And who are the shareholders? We're the people that are in the stock market. In my opinion, and this is just my opinion, and you can debate me all you want, the creation of the stock market was the stupidest thing ever, because it responds a little bit like we were talking about. They always want more. They're not satisfied with 2 billion revenue this year. They want next year to be 30 billion. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, they want more.
it just pushes the system to squeeze and squeeze more out of, well, third world countries and other societies. Because when people, if there's something that, can I curse?
You can say whatever you
Yes.
want here.
If there's something that fucking pisses me off, is people who make money when companies go down, for example, when they short stock or things like that. I'm like, what are you adding to society when you make money because somebody else is losing their jobs and their livelihood? What is the how? Explain
Like
that to me.
vultures.
I freaking hate the stock market. I mean, I hold stock because my father used to hold stock, and our inheritance is not sorted out, so I still own something from my inheritance. But I hate the stock market. The purpose of the stock market was to be initially kind of like a crowdfunding kind of thing.
Right.
Hey, I want to make something new. How about we get some financing? Okay, fine. But now, when they're creating ways to make money without actually creating value, it's insane. It's stupid. When the value of a company changes because Elon Musk smokes a doobie on Joe Rogan,
Right. Yeah,
go
that's
fuck
true.
yourself.
No, you're right about that. It's
I mean,
ridiculous.
what does that have to do with the quality of the car, with the value of the company that he smokes a doobie on Joe Rogan's podcast? You tell me.
Yeah, it doesn't mean anything. Absolutely. That
It's
was
the stock market
insane.
is a creation, and like most creations of mankind, well, is parasitical. It's gonna eat itself.
Absolutely. And of course, I hate to do this, but we have to wrap up pretty soon here. We do have a second guest coming on board, and it's really a shame, Fernando. I'm assuming if people had taken COVID-19 more seriously out here in America, there wouldn't have been such a high body count. That's one of the contributing factors to what we're seeing here in America. And aside from
Mm,
that, of course, those who ended up catching it by someone who didn't know they were positive to begin with. And these are uncharted territories, as they say, and none of us have all the answers just yet.
true that, true that. Well, Michael, Mike, I want to thank you very much for having me, and we'll keep in touch. You know my number.
For sure, brother. It was nice to talk to you. Always good to get someone else's opinion from China, of all places. Love that very much. And of course, I gotta say, go ahead and plug anything you'd like, my friend. The floor is yours. Take it away.
I would like to plug my channel, China Teacher Brand, and particularly my new podcast, OCC, of course, China. This is going to become my main source of income. So if you could go over there and subscribe, I would really, really appreciate it. Interesting content coming out every single day.
Nice.
So, Mike, thank you so very much. And well, the board is yours. You tell me when to cut.
Very nice. Well,
Thank you
again,
so much. I just want to
yeah.
say thank you so
Go ahead.
much for coming on the show and putting up with my tough questions and statements. Thank you very much. Come back real soon, Fernando.
Will do.
Thank you so much. We'll talk again.
Bye.
Mahalo. And there he goes, boys and girls. That was Fernando. My God.
Wow.
That was fun, right?
Heck yeah.
Yeah, I enjoyed him.
Definitely got to have him back.
Yeah, pretty fascinating.
I was really, I mean, I had a lot more questions I wanted to talk to him about. But you know what? It's just going to have to be another time.
Of course. We do have a second guest coming up, and Mike, I will talk to you in a minute here. We have
All
to
right,
hit a break here. And
Okay.
when we return, we have a very special guest, Mr. Billy Ray. That should be fun. Mike, I'll talk to you when we return.
5 minutes, pal.
Oh, yes. It's time to go to the bathroom, go to the restroom, go to the fridge, do what you got to do, take your gimmicks. And when we return, round 2. Stay tuned.
Have you thought of breaking through? Ain't it part of what you do? Catch a victim while he's dumb, break his larynx with your thumb. Time, and it's time to get high. Well, this ain't no goddamn dream. It's exactly what it seems. Wake up today just to lay back down and say, I won't be coming back. Let's call it a heart attack. Give me some of that knack. This is just a final payback. They all flipped on me, took my passions, left me be. When I had a place to sit, a goddamn attitude to fit. Talk real smooth, knew where to spit. But things have changed and I've quit. Got nothing to look forward to but a backlash full of lies. You're too late for where you're going. This is fate, the whistle's blowing. It's much too late. It's all too late. You're much too late. Like a piss hole punk with his nose turned up and a fragrance all your own. Tell me what it's like to be alone. And let's not forget the Scarface prick who offers fix to your face. He dropped out of the subhuman race. That's sad. Boo-hoo-hoo. But I'm goddamn glad that piece of shit was just a fad. Tell me, boy, where were you? What's your story? I mean, really? Where have you been? Was it the big time and full of sin? Tell me what you saw, chasing dragons down the hall. So now I find you just the same, a generation full of games. I hear the whispers, I see traps to break my legs. Where are you going, boy? Where have you been? You're too late for where you're going. This is fate, the whistle's blowing. It's much too late. It's much too late. You're much too late. You're much too late. You're much too late. Tell me, where are you going? Where have you been?
Ladies and gentlemen, it's Michael and Mike of the Michael Decon Program. It's goddamn amazing.
And you're goddamn right, it is quite amazing. And welcome back, boys and girls, for round 2. And here I am, and there you are. So glad to see you there. And of course, we are joined yet again by 2 very special men, Mr. Mike Hideous and Billy Ray. What's going on, boys?
What's up? How's everybody doing? It's Billy Ray Valentine. Greetings from lockdown in the Bronx. Hope everybody's doing well.
Love that. Mike, how was your break?
Not bad. I put the birds to sleep. And I'm just looking at your face on my computer.
Very nice, very nice. And Billy Ray, how the hell are you out there from NYC?
I'm doing good, thank God. Surviving out here, doing my thing. Things are a bit different. Not a bit different. They're quite a bit different than they were about a month and a half ago. But we're still through the grace of God, we're doing our thing out here. So I'm very grateful.
Nice. And before we begin, I'm sure you were listening to the first half there with the guest from China. What?
I heard a bit of it, yeah.
Nice. What exactly are your thoughts about all that?
Man, I'll just tell you this.
Wild.
No type of surveillance is good surveillance.
I agree.
I don't care how you slice it. Listen, I'm not trying to get at your guest. I don't know him, and I'm sure he's a good guy.
Oh, he is. He is.
Surveillance for security will give you absolutely nothing. It'll make you a slave.
We already are.
Thank you, Billy.
So when you sit there and say, all of this surveillance and it's good because, it keeps us safe, you really don't deserve to be safe at that point, in my opinion. If at least you're, and I understand that there are things that we can't avoid or are really hard to avoid in today's society, right? It's a technological society.
That's right.
And we've gone really deep into that side of the pool.
Maybe too deep. Maybe too deep, my friend.
Right. I get it. I understand that, but there's no justifying in, hey, it's safe and they're keeping us safe. And the people of China trust the Chinese government. I mean, I'm not with that at all. I'm sorry.
No.
Well,
absolutely.
To be honest with you,
more mind control than anything else, I would say. I don't know if it's trust, but you shouldn't trust your government as far as you can throw them, and I'm pretty sure you can't throw them very far.
Well, Billy, you got to understand, that's the CCP. I don't think he can really say too much, anything too negative about them,
Well,
that's right.
That's the other limitation.
I guess that's not a bad point to make. Be it that he is in China, but if you don't have anything truthful to say, don't say anything at all.
I tell you, Billy, I wanted to grill him with more questions, but I also wanted to be very polite. And what you just said about him being in the CCP, he probably can't say anything.
He really can't, though. I mean, before we start the show, we talked about that.
Right.
So
that's a valid point.
There's limitations. There's limitations.
And your whole comment about surveillance, fucking Big Brother is all I gotta say.
That's been going on for a long time. I mean, people forget as soon as you sign up for anything, as soon as you get a house, you pay rent, you buy your cell phone, you have a phone line, a landline. I mean, all of that is already compromised, boys. People forget all the time. And by the way, just to clarify my comments I made about a microphone of all things, I already got complaints, boys. They're saying, oh, why don't you like the microphone? What's your problem? I just thought, oh my God. The thing is, you could have a very expensive microphone. Well, let me just clarify this. You could have a very expensive microphone, but it comes down to that person's voice and the frequency response of that device that you're using. Every mic serves its purpose, really. And for me personally, that mic, the Shure, it was not good for me. That's all I was trying to say, folks. You don't have to get so angry and send me these messages about a microphone for all things.
I can't believe somebody came down on you for that.
People complain to me all the time.
I bet.
Every day. But the thing is, I like it, though. I don't have an issue with that. I think it's amusing.
Okay.
It's cool. But back on point here, we do have Billy Ray all the way from NYC, and my goodness, I gotta ask you, when did all this begin for you? When did your interest in the fringe begin, Ray? Billy Ray? I was gonna call you Billy Ray Cyrus right now, I'm sorry.
Billy Ray Valentine. All right, let's get it straight.
I gotta get it straight, I'm sorry.
I don't know Miley Cyrus. I have no idea who that is, and I don't. That
was my first
country music.
Yeah,
that was my first question to Michael. I was like, "Is he related to what's her name, Miley Cyrus?"
Yeah, he was all excited.
Nah, man. I think it's a lifelong journey, right? You know.
Right.
If you're gonna be from this mindset, you're gonna be from this mindset. You always had it in you at some point. Maybe you weren't following it at one point, but something jogged your memory or brought you back to where you were supposed to be. But I always questioned everything, and while I wasn't questioning it out loud, I was questioning it in my brain for the most part. But it changed. Somebody handed me Behold a Pale Horse in my teenage years.
Oh, okay.
And I started reading that thing, and while there are a lot of inaccuracies in the book, it's still very close to my heart. It brought me down a road that I don't regret going down. And I picked it up and I ran with it for a bit, and then I put it back down, and I went about my life until September 11th happened.
Yeah,
here. And I was in the city when it happened, where I was working in Midtown, and that of course changed my life forever and ever. But it went. I went till 2005. I want to say, believing the official narrative of what went down.
Understood.
And, I had handed that Behold a Pale Horse. I gave it to my cousin way back before 2011. 2001. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And he was the one who brought me back in 2005. And he told me, listen, everything you heard about September 11th is wrong. And I told him, I'm like, that's a bunch of nonsense. Tell me where you got all this information, and I will go take it apart. And I went, to where he got the information, and I didn't take anything apart. I was like, wow.
So tell us, what do you think really went down?
Well, I don't, so that's a journey too. And I'll tell you what, in 2005, when I found out that something was seriously wrong, I thought I was going to change the world. I printed up tons of articles, questioning the official story, about drills going on the morning before and the morning of, and in 1976, the Pentagon running drills, planes hitting buildings, the magic passport, and hijackers alive and well, the BBC, there are tons of them. I printed up a bunch of this stuff, and I went out to Ground Zero and handed it to people. And I was like, hey, look, take a look at this. We're being lied to. And I thought for sure, we were going to change the world. That I was like, people are going to see this and they're going to be like, wow, wow, I was lied to. This is crazy. Let me at least look into this. And I got the complete opposite from most people. There were people that were angry, cursing me out, taking the papers from my hand and throwing them on the floor. I wasn't ready for that. It was a training, so what I've learned is, throughout that thing, I was going around telling people, listen, I know what happened. And I didn't know what happened. Nobody freaking knows what happened that day, and we can speculate and we can take educated guesses as to what we believe happened that day, but we don't know 100%. And the thing that I stick to the most is we're being lied to about September 11th, because I can prove that. I can prove that we're being lied to about September 11th. I could go to FBI.gov and show people that Osama bin Laden's profile doesn't mention a 9/11 anywhere in it. I can go to the hijackers page and show people that their identities are still in question. I can do all of that. That stuff I can prove. I can't prove that nanothermite brought down the World Trade Center. I defer to Richard Gage on that. I can't prove that George Bush or Dick Cheney were intimately involved. I can show circumstantial evidence that points in that direction, but I can't prove it. So what I say is there's something wrong and we're being lied to. So we're definitely being lied to about that event, and we've been lied to about so many different events before and after that, it's enough to mentally traumatize a population. And I think that's what's gone down here in large part. And even with this COVID thing, it's a large psychological operation. That's not to say that it is a fake thing, because it's not. From what I've seen here.
Yeah, let me stop you there really quickly. Do you know anyone who was affected by COVID-19 personally?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And that was the thing, right? Everybody in the alternative community. So I run a show called The Infinite Fringe.
Oh yeah.
On True Frequency Radio, right? And it's on iHeartRadio, and I have a podcast by the same name.
What time?
What's up, buddy?
What time for the listeners?
It goes live at 7 p.m. Eastern on Sundays. But the podcast you can get whenever.
Nice.
So
right.
You go over and get the podcast. I also run a show called America Unplugged over on Iconic. That's Jamie Ike, David Ike's son, built that platform, and all of Ike's stuff is on it. And America Unplugged, I'm on it.
Cool.
So that was the thing, and I've had everybody on the shows, and they're like, do you know anybody that's died from COVID? Do you know anybody that has COVID? Do you know anybody that's been affected by COVID? So it was a progression, right? And no, I didn't know. I don't know anybody. And then it's like, give me a week.
Slowly, yeah.
I don't know anybody. And then the third week, well, yeah, I heard of somebody. Yeah, I heard of a lot of people that have COVID-19. And then unfortunately, yeah, I know people that died. I know people that died. So yeah, absolutely. I've had close friends, very close friends that have come down with what they're calling COVID-19.
Right.
Whatever it is. They've come down with it. They get sick. They have a lot of these people have very similar symptoms. What am I to believe when people around me that I trust are telling me that things are going down? And then I know at least 3 people that are dead as a result of this thing. At least it's been credited to that. And I know 1 degree of separation, tons of people. I went up and down my phone and started asking people, do you know anybody that's dead? Yeah, we know. And it started snowballing like that. And it's a real thing. It's a real deal. It's a real deal going on. It might be overblown. Might be. I think the reaction is overblown.
Possibly. Possibly,
right?
Yeah.
But are people dying? And is there a virus going around? There absolutely is.
Definitely. And, that's one thing I had an issue with a lot of people in the fringe community, not specifically you or anything, but people in the circle, they were all saying it's a hoax, it's this, it's that. And, I've known plenty of people that had it at one point. I don't know anyone who died, but I know people who recovered. And I just kept thinking, how is this fake to you? How is this a hoax?
Yeah, I know several people that have recovered, thank God. I know several people that were rushed to the hospital as a result of this with underlying conditions.
Yeah.
And I was concerned, that they weren't going to make it because these people are in bad shape as it is, but they were able to make it through. But unfortunately, that's not the case for everyone.
Yeah.
But it's a real deal. I got sick about 3 weeks ago.
Uh-oh.
I never get sick.
Did you get COVID-19?
It could have been. I don't know if it was or wasn't. I stayed home and dealt with it.
How long? 3 days, 4 days? Did you have the headache, the fever?
These were my symptoms. I had fever, chills, body aches.
Ooh.
And an overall lethargic feeling, and that feeling of, just that lasted for a few weeks.
Oh, okay.
But the fever, and I never get fevers, Mike.
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen, right? So I knew something was up, but that lasted for about 3 days, and then we knocked that out, and the fever was slight. It wasn't anything
too bad.
Yeah. And sometimes I felt great, but then it would
come back. Yeah. You might have gotten a weaker strain. That's probably what it was. You probably caught one of the weaker strains out there in the beginning, because, a while ago I had the same thing going on with me.
Oh man, sorry to hear that, man. Well, I'm glad you're well. You sound well anyway.
Oh, I'm good, man. I can't complain. I'm back and I'm kicking people's ass. I mean, I'm having a great time.
Glad you're kicking people's asses, you know?
Got to put
Let
boots
me know.
to
I haven't
faces.
kicked somebody's ass in a long time. I would like to join you.
Oh yeah. Go ahead, Mike. Did you have something to say, Mike?
All I was going to
Jump in
mention
there.
is that Michael had a symptom. When was it? February or December?
Something like that. No, December, late December.
December.
Mhm.
And then I had something right after the beginning of the new year. I felt like a cold was coming on for 2 weeks, and then one Friday morning I had gotten up and it just clobbered me, and I felt so sick. I had to go to the emergency room, and they did a culture in my throat where they said it was strep throat and flu A.
Yeah. That's the thing though, Mike. I think perhaps we might have just contracted the old dirty greasy flu, perhaps.
And
It's
it
possible.
could be one or the other.
Yeah.
You're right, Michael.
You never know. And that's probably what's going on with our boy here, Billy Ray. That
It's very
maybe,
possible.
but you being in New York, that has me a little concerned.
Well, yeah, the thing is, like, I knew so many people that were sick before they locked this place down.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they had COVID, right? But they were sick. Everybody was coughing, sneezing. Something was wrong, and I was like, all right, like it could be normal. I don't know if I'm walking around typically taking account of who's sick and who's not. It's just not something I think of.
Of course.
Yeah.
I'm walking around, I'm fine, and I'm not really worried about the flu. I've never had a flu shot in my life. I haven't had the flu in at least like 12 years,
Damn.
10 years, I had since I had a fever. So this sort of stuff is not something I'm worried about. Thank God,
That's good.
But
man.
I'm walking around and I'm noticing all these people with a cough or with a sneeze or with a sniffle. And I guess, you look at the media for long enough and then you're going to start thinking, all right, I need to start looking around, and that's what the television and the media will do to you. So I'm fully aware of that, but that being said, there were tons of people that were, showing symptoms of something. It was like they came over New York and just sprinkled it on here I mean, I don't know. I'm just saying that.
Yeah.
I'm not
okay.
saying that's what happened. But it's kind of like that. Like they just came over here and just dumped it on New York City.
A little dose.
Yeah, like here, take that.
A little micro dosing there.
But luckily, a lot of the people that I know that are personal to me have bounced back fairly soon. Like they've kicked it, and some, like I said, some of the people that have underlying conditions were able to kick it as well, right? But I know the opposite also, man. And so and I had a lot of the problems that you had. A lot of people saying that it was just completely fake, and just because there's nothing going on where you are. Wherever you are,
right?
In Alabama or wherever, that there's nothing really going on, and you go to a hospital and you don't see anything, and you can go to New York, you can walk around New York City and go to these hospitals, and you're not going to see anything on the outside. It's not a war zone like they make it out to be on television.
On television, correct.
That doesn't mean that nothing's going on the inside.
I agree.
And I have people that work in healthcare that tell me hideous stories that I don't want to hear, and I'm going to trust them. I trust them way more than I do CNN, way more than I do Fox News. Because these are people that I know and that I've grown up with and that I've had relationship with. And when people tell me, listen, there's a truck outside of this hospital, Hospital X, and it has tons of dead bodies in it. And this is one of my best friends that's telling me this, and he's intimately connected to this. I'm like, all right, why would he lie to me? And I'm gonna believe it. You understand? Like, so I mean, I understand to a certain degree people that aren't as connected, they won't. You have to see it to believe it. But when it comes knocking on your door, it's not a pretty thing.
I agree.
So you got to take everything into account here.
Yeah, they weren't crisis actors.
No. All right, and that's a really valid point that you bring up here. Because I've had everyone on my show. Like a lot of people that have come out with the crisis actor narrative, and I'm willing to listen to it. I'm willing to listen to just about anything.
Of course, you have to.
And our crisis actors a thing? Absolutely, it's not to deny it. It's a thing, right? But then they go as far as to say nobody died. Now, if we believe in the New World Order, if we believe in the elite, whatever you want to call these people, the Illuminati, if we believe in these people and we believe that they're trying to carry out a eugenics program and they want to eliminate the population of Earth, why would they go out of their way to create like a hologram that's gone into the World Trade Center because there were no planes and nobody died? So why would they go through that trouble if they just want to kill people? What's 3,000 people to them?
Exactly.
What's the Las Vegas shooting, where people saying that nobody died in the Las Vegas shooting? Why would they spare the life of people?
Yeah, I just don't buy that myself.
Really doing mental gymnastics to believe something like this. And I think that's what's led us to this point where we're saying there is no virus. No one is dying. I can't subscribe to that.
That's pretty insane.
That's not, yeah. Well, we all know that's not true because the virus is there. It's realer than ever. People are dying from it. The question is, why? Where did it come from? Why was it manufactured the way it was? And what asshole would go and release something like this on humanity? Some sick idiot.
Yes, and that brings me to my next question. I was going to ask you, what exactly are your, I guess, opinions on where this thing sort of originated from?
Well, we're originally I bought the mainstream narrative, and to a certain degree, I'm not completely divorced from it, that it came out of China. Right. And there is the lab over there that they use to have these experiments and all that other stuff. And even the mainstream has subscribed to that view to a certain degree.
It took them a while.
Mainstream.
It took them a while, man. It took them a while. We were way early on that one, right, Mike?
Right. Of course. I mean, as soon as this happened, people that are of our frame of thinking, we already know that they've been planning something like this for a long time. And we're like, okay, fine, this is a bioweapon, and it's probably man-made. This isn't natural, right? So that's the obvious jump that we make, right? But I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, fine, it's probably from Wuhan. Then I have, through the course of having people on, you start developing, new information. You get exposed to new information, and you start developing different opinions,
right,
on what actually happened here, right? And unfortunately, we can't rule out that this thing may have started out right here in the United States.
You can't. There's a possibility.
We can't rule it out. And shouts to John Brissom, who we've read the documents. He's done a lot of great work over there, and he's been saying that there's a possibility that it started out here in the United States. And John Hankey, I don't know if you guys are familiar with him, but he did a lot of the JFK documentaries, JFK 2, The Bush Connection, way back in the day. He was on my show last week.
Nice. Okay.
And he says that there is a possibility. Now, he's not endorsing it as fact, but he's saying that there is a possibility that this thing could have came out of Fort Detrick. Like, remember what you guys were saying. You guys exhibited symptoms very early on, right? And even the mainstream is admitting that this thing was here long before we made it official that it was.
Yeah.
Right. So,
especially here in California, there's all kinds of articles saying that it was already here in California a long time ago already.
Wow, man. And
well, yeah, but the coronavirus has been around for a while. It's just that
we're talking about SARS. Yeah, we're talking about SARS-CoV-2.
Right, the novel coronavirus.
Right.
This particular virus was manufactured with the AIDS strand attached to what? The SARS flu, whatever. So that's what makes it so deadly. And if I may just interject for a second, what I wanted to say to you, Billy, was I sort of disagree with your the possibility of it starting here, and I only say that is because China was where the first they had the first incidents of people being infected, and then it as a result of China not telling everybody and keeping it a secret and not keeping those people from leaving the country, that's how it spread. I mean, that's how I see it. I I
mean,
I
it's
differ with
it's
you.
very possible, brother. Like, I mean, I don't claim to know any of this. I'm just soaking in all the information. I'm not going to rule things out. You know what I mean? When
No,
people,
I get it.
Well,
right,
you
right,
can't
exactly.
rule it
I
out.
know you do.
You can't
know,
rule it out.
so-
It's still too early to rule that out.
Right. I don't know. I don't know where this thing came from. If
A lot of questions.
Yeah, there's
I
still a
think
bunch.
I still subscribe to the narrative that this is a bioweapon.
Absolutely.
And whether it was leaked on purpose or it was leaked accidentally, I'm not sure. Either or can be the possibility. Regardless, they are taking full advantage of this thing.
Oh, I see that too. Yes.
Complete and full advantage of this is, and by they I mean the powers that be, right? They're taking full advantage of this and locking us all down and creating a whole shitload of other problems as a result, right? But I think they're fully aware of what they're doing, and this is a multifaceted attack.
It always is, though, right? There's always multi layers to the story.
Exactly.
But guys,
issue.
don't forget when they discovered that it becomes airborne. Number one, remember what Paul Control told us? It became airborne in addition to being able to stay on surfaces for up to, I believe he said, 9 days until it gets a host. And then even when the host gets infected, it can that host can go, I think, up to 2 weeks without symptoms, thus spreading it to other hosts.
Asymptomatic, right?
Right. So that's what we definitely learned about it. So here's, and I don't mean to interrupt you, Bill. I just have to say this. See, when the president and again, it wasn't the president who locked us down. Each state has its governor. The governor makes that call on to shut the state down. It was off. The idea was offered by the president, saying, "Look, it's probably best we keep everybody sequestered, keep them at home, shut down businesses until this passes." And I see the problem just like you do. Financial, big problem for us all over the country and as an effect to the world. But again, I think the president acted based on knowing how dangerous this particular flu was. Every year we get a flu that kills 20, 30,000 people, and we don't think anything about it. But this was different. And once they analyzed it with having the AIDS virus strand attached to it, that made it even more serious.
Well, you know what? I mean, all right. So I'm going to present my side of things here, or the way I kind of see things here, right? And even with the president, right? Like, we're talking about that the governors get to pick, and you're right? The government's picked to a certain degree, but they always consult with the president. Like before Cuomo did anything, he's been calling Cuomo here in New York City, Andrew Cuomo. He's been calling Donald Trump to see what they can come up with. And then Trump claims that he has full authority and that he can do whatever he wants. This is what he said, not me. And that that the federal government calls the shots at the end of the day. What he said, right? Then there's states in the southern part of the United States that have already begun opening up, and Donald Trump, just said that maybe that wasn't the best idea, right? So he's back and forth here on this whole situation. As far as he goes and the decisions that are made, I don't think Donald Trump is making any decisions, to be honest with you, man. He and it's fine if you guys disagree, but he looks like a deer in headlights up there. And these guys, Fauci and Pompeo and whomever else, are running the show.
Well, that I can agree with. I don't think he has much. I was just gonna say I don't think he has much say in this matter.
Right.
How could he? He's not a medical doctor. I mean, any of us would probably, especially if you're focused on, let's just say, for example, we're talking about the president. He's running the country. The hell's he know? What's he going to know about medical strands of viruses? He's not going to know that. So you're right on that. I agree with you. He's probably very clueless on this particular topic, but at the same time, that's what he's got all his people for.
Right, and all these people gave him ridiculous numbers, and what I'm saying, I said this about a month ago, on the show, as soon as I saw these numbers and these projections that all these lockdowns are based on. Now, we got to realize that the lockdowns are worldwide, just about. It's almost everywhere that these countries have taken the drastic actions that they have. Donald Trump can't close down India, so there's something bigger at play here. But when they presented Donald Trump or whomever in the United States government with these numbers, that are projections, 2 million people are going to die. 3 million people are going to die if we don't do X, Y, and Z. Now, those projections couldn't have been more off. Even with the mainstream media now, they're admitting that they couldn't be more off, right? I mean, it was just nonsense, right? I forget the name of the guy who came up with these projections. And then they lowered the projections to about 200,000. If, 200,000 people are going to die if we don't lock down, if we don't put in social distancing. Then they knock it down to 100,000, even if we do the social distancing and we do the lockdowns. And this is the information that these governments have been running on to justify these lockdowns. And what happens when we don't reach those numbers? Because we're not going to reach those numbers. What they say is, well, we acted and we locked down the country and we did social distancing, and that's why this is happening. That's why we were able to save X amount of people. And moving forward, this is something we're going to have to keep in mind, and we're going to have to institute. Social distancing may not go away for a long time, especially here where I'm at. This is New York City. We're in jail.
Yeah, you guys are stacked up with each other out there like a wet market in China.
You ain't kidding, brother. It's
it's crazy. The buildings block the sun out there. Oh, did we lose Ray already?
I'm here. I'm here now. You did lose me for a second, but I'm here.
Oh yes, I'm glad you're back.
I'm sure you guys would both agree that it's probably best off that the numbers were off by a higher rate than by being underrated. I mean,
yeah, I think so.
Do you ever go to a doctor? I know this for a fact. Because I have 2 doctor friends. You go to a doctor, you get diagnosed with cancer, and they tell you the worst scenario possible.
Right.
Even Paul Cottrell said this exact same thing, that they'll tell you the worst scenario first. And then if you get through the process and you come away without having all the serious predictions that they said could happen, the possibilities of happening, and you end up coming out of it pretty good, then you praise the doctor like, yes, thank you so much, I'm going to live, terrific, awesome. That's how I see it. It's probably better that they overestimated than underestimated, because if they had underestimated, we would have been fucked.
I see your point, right? I see where you're going with it or whatever, but was the overestimation an honest mistake, or was it premeditated to get us where we're at right now?
It could have been.
That's my question. I'm not going to give these people the benefit of the doubt, and quite frankly, it's not my job to do so. It is my job to keep my foot on their throat until they give me a valid answer, and they're not going to do that. So as of right now, I'm thinking it was malicious.
It's possible, man.
It is what it is. I don't trust these governments as far as I can throw them. These guys have been wrong over and over and over again as far as projections go. But we keep relying on these people to give us these projections. Now, I don't want to be played with. I don't want to be told, hey, it's going to be this bad, and that in all actuality is not that bad. And I'd rather that scenario, you're absolutely right, than being told it's not going to be that bad, and then it's a crap show, right? I get that. I'm 100% with you there. But what I want is the truth. That's what I want.
Good luck with that, Bill.
Exactly.
Well,
right?
that's the problem.
I get it. It's not going to happen, but that's what I want.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm here doing what I do. Right. I want a pursuit of the truth. Just because I'm not going to get it doesn't mean I'm going to stop looking for it. You understand what I'm saying? I'm going to keep pushing through until I finally get something. And if I don't get anything, I'm going to keep going anyway. So I mean, that's my whole deal here. It's these lockdowns, whether, and I know this virus to be real 100%. I don't think these lockdowns are justified. I think we could have gone about this a different way. But they're taking full advantage of this. And who knows what's going to happen at the other end of this, meaning when they relax some of this stuff. Let's remember 9/11, right? And that was the incident that got me into this, right? And I call this a bio 9/11 because there's a lot of similarities here, even down to the fakeness of it, right? They said, oh, the 9/11 fakery, nobody died. There was nobody in the towers. And then now we're seeing the same narrative kind of rolled out about this. But regardless of that, what happened after 9/11? We got the Patriot Act. We got the Department of Homeland Security. We got TSA at the airports, man. That never went away. Naked body scanners, the whole deal. Like every time I fly, I refuse to take the naked body scanner, so I have to get patted down in front of everyone. I mean, they allow me to go into a room if I want, but I'm not going to go into a room. They'll pat me down in front of everybody. That way I know I'm all right. I turn it down out of principle. Plus, I don't want to get hit with all that radiation. What's going to happen after this?
Yeah, we don't know.
Bio 9/11. What's going to happen after this?
Yeah, after
what are they
9/11.
going to hit us with that they're not going to roll back?
Yeah, now after 9/11, that's when things really went downhill in terms of our civil liberties for sure. And, going back to COVID-19 really, or SARS-CoV-2 rather, I'm at 75% in the notion that this virus was not a naturally occurring virus. I think both of you have already stated that you agree with that.
Right.
Right, Mike?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, the thing is, definitely I feel that this perhaps was created in a lab. And
I have no doubt it was.
Here's the crazy thing though, Mike. And you too, Billy Ray. I was going to call you Billy Ray Cyrus there, but I stopped. But see, here's the thing, my friend. Here's the thing. If it's true that this was worked on in China, then sent here to be worked on at Fort Detrick, and then sent back to Canada as we get reports that it was there at one time, and then back to China. It just leads me to think perhaps this virus was not finished. Maybe I'm completely wrong with that my own conspiracy theory there, but I feel like this was not completed, which is why it was being sent back and forth. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But what do you think about that, Billy Ray?
That's very possible. All these things are in play, and that's why our shows are important, because the mainstream will not explore these avenues. They stay stuck in their box. They stay stuck in whatever narrative they want us to follow and they want us to believe. So if we're really going to get down to what actually happened, we have to explore every situation. We have to explore every avenue, every road. And if this is true, then the United States, Canada, and China are complicit. We're just pointing the finger at China, at least the right here in the United States. If you guys have noticed, turn on Fox News or and I'm not taking sides here, all right? Like I didn't vote for Hillary Clinton. I am not a Democrat, and I sure as hell didn't vote for Donald Trump because I'm not a Republican, right? So I'm not voting for any of these people. I don't endorse organized crime. That's just me. But automatically people get triggered and they automatically said, oh, you said something about Trump, oh, you're a Hillary supporter, or you said something about Hillary, you're a Trump supporter. So just had to put that out there. But the right has been drumming, beating the drums for war in China, or a cold war of sorts. Even Alex Jones, if you turn on InfoWars, what's going on there? They're just pointing at China. Oh, we have to hold them accountable. We're going to free the people of China. Also, we're going to bring democracy to China. This is the narrative that's coming out of there. It's freaking ridiculous. So all of these things need to be explored.
Definitely. Everything must be explored. Leave no stone unturned. And of course, we have been told that a lot of this was being funded by us out there. And it goes back to Dr. Fauci and Obama.
Right, and in 2017, I think, right, that it goes back as far as that or something.
15 to 17, yeah.
Right. So and so I've heard all that, and everybody's trying to co-opt it, right? So they're like, no, it was the Democrats and Obama that did it. It wasn't us. It wasn't us, the right. You know what I mean? I don't subscribe to the whole
two-party system.
QAnon.
Yeah, I was gonna say you don't subscribe to the whole two-party system.
No.
Basically, same cloth, really.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, exactly. It's two wings on the same bird, two sides of the same coin.
Pretty
Right?
much.
So I mean, they've been carrying the baton for every president that comes in. You see them invading a country, going right along with the military-industrial complex and the technocrat-industrial complex. That never fails. They give us everything else. You know, they let us argue about, you know, abortion or gay rights or stuff like that. Yeah, you can argue about that all day long. But when it comes down to the bottom line of it, wars will continue and the technocracy will be advanced. Plain and simple. That can't even be argued. You know, and so Donald Trump fits that mold. And you know what? If you want to make the argument that Donald Trump isn't in control and he's being led around by the nose, I'll buy that. Regardless, he's either willingly or by default carrying the torch. Go ahead.
Billy, you're forgetting one thing about Donald Trump before he was president, and that is he was not a politician.
Right.
Which is why a lot of people voted for him, because they wanted to get away from both sides of the corrupt parties, the Republicans and the Democrats. And let me tell you, I'm sure you know that they are both guilty of sliming around in that swamp, as they call it.
Right.
But that's one of the main reasons that Donald Trump got the position, is because he was not a politician, and that's why so many people wanted somebody to come in and clear the shit, as it would be.
I don't disagree with you that people wanted that. We need to go back and look at Cambridge Analytica and their role, and what was in their role in getting President Trump elected, right? And Steve Bannon, and what they were able to pull off, having 5,000 data points on every American. What's up?
Wait. I'm a little confused on that statement. What are you saying?
Cambridge Analytica. Are you familiar?
I am not.
All right. So Steve Bannon went over to the UK in a Cambridge University. They started. It was an offshoot of another company, which I am drawing a blank on it. But the company that they ended up creating was called Cambridge Analytica. It was a research company, and what they did was. I don't know if you remember, not too long ago, there was the Facebook scandal, that all of this information was being leaked and it was being used for political purposes. Well, that was Cambridge Analytica. They had 5,000 data points on every American, and Steve Bannon created it for that goal, right? To harvest, and they knew they had the pulse of Americans and what Americans were thinking. They came up with things like lock her up. They came up with things like drain the swamp, you know, and they were like, whoa, people want to hear this. And their first pick was Ted Cruz. Now, this is admitted. This is not conspiracy theory. You can even go on Netflix and find a documentary about it.
Yeah, you can thank Mark.
I remember.
You can thank Mark Zuckerberg for this.
Right.
He allowed it.
And you know, and a bunch of other people, you know. So they wanted Ted Cruz initially to be the guy. And for some reason, that all fell apart. Donald Trump stepped in. They took Donald Trump, and I think it was the perfect fit because Donald Trump can talk like nobody's business. He can sell a crowd. He's very charismatic, and he was able to sell the narrative, I think, better than Ted Cruz ever would have been able to. He, you know, drained the swamp. He got people chanting. You know, I'm from the professional wrestling world. I don't know if you guys are aware. You know, I did a lot of, not that I wrestled, but I did reporting for professional wrestling for a while.
I didn't know that.
Do sometimes. I work with Bill Apter, the legendary Bill Apter over at OneWrestling.com. You know, so I see a lot of parallels between what Donald Trump does and what a professional wrestler does, especially at rallies when he's losing his mind and he gets that crowd going.
Well, that's a promo right there.
Drain the swamp. We're going to drain the swamp. And they chant. I don't know if you guys are familiar with professional wrestling, but The Rock, I'm going to take it to The Rock. Everybody knows The Rock. The Rock stood in front of those people and said, if you smell, and everybody's like, what, The Rock is cooking, you know?
Well, the thing is, Donald Trump is good friends with Vince McMahon. So
right. I mean,
he's been there.
Vince McMahon is actively deciding whether or not we're going to open up the country, ladies and gentlemen, okay? That's how much friends Donald Trump and Vince McMahon are. Now, Cambridge Analytica had 5,000 data points on every American, so they knew that people were dissatisfied with government. And they fed a script to Donald Trump, and Donald Trump executed it very well. Boom. He is the president of the United States as a result. That's what went down.
Oh, he's been cutting mean promos out there, no doubt.
Oh, well, what about Russia?
What about it?
I mean, how long the Democrats, bitched and complained that the Russians were the ones who, tried to hacked into our voting abilities and made Trump president. If the Russians worked for anybody, they worked for Hillary Clinton. She's the one who sold them uranium for their nuclear programs. She's the one whose server got sacked by so many different enemy countries while she had a computer in a bathroom that was not protected. I mean, if Hillary had become president, we'd probably be in a lot more deeper shit. Don't you agree?
I think it's.
Did I stump you, Bill?
No. I got you. I got something for you. Give me a little bit of time, right?
Snap back.
But the thing is with Hillary, right? I used to be able to answer that question very quickly and say, no, we'd be in the same type of shit because while she would have maybe quote unquote started war with Russia, which is all speculation because she isn't the president and we never got to see it. Donald Trump started war with Venezuela and continued a war with the Middle East and almost started World War III by killing Qasem Soleimani. Okay, so let's not forget all that. Regardless, we're talking about Hillary Clinton and Russia. So here's what I believe as far as that. What did we miss? What did we forget about altogether when we were pointing the finger at Russia? What did we forget about? We're over here talking all the Russians hijacked our elections, and this was the right defending themselves from the left. When the left was like, it was Russia, and the right was like, no, it wasn't. That they had nothing to do with it, whatever. Neither of them acknowledged the elephant in the room. And that was the emails from Hillary Clinton. All right. And no one acknowledged that. And that was the real problem. Pizzagate, all that stuff that came out of there, while some of it has quote unquote been debunked. It was a lot of very, very valuable information. Whatever happened to lock Hillary Clinton up, right? Whatever happened to that? And I believe the whole Russia scandal was just a cover, a diversion for Hillary Clinton to get off scot-free. All right, and that's exactly what happened. Because if
agreed,
what's up?
Agreed. That's all I'm saying. Agreed.
Yeah, so but both sides were complicit because if the Republicans, if the right was genuine about their hatred for Hillary Clinton, and I mean the right at the top. I don't mean the people. I mean the people that are actually running the party. If they were genuine about their belief that Hillary needed to be locked up and that she was horrible and all that, they would have been like, no. This isn't about Russia. Let's get back to you. Let's get back to you, Hillary, and everything that's going on with you and those emails that leaked and you stealing the election from Bernie Sanders. Let's get back to all that. But they didn't do that. They went right along with the Russian narrative. And Donald Trump played right into it. And what did we get? Division. We got division. And what happened with Donald Trump, who wasn't a politician, admittedly wasn't a politician, right? He isn't polished at all. What happened when he became the president of the United States? It reinvested everyone into the left-right paradigm. Now we have more people on the right and more people on the left. They're invested into politics more than ever before. People are going to come on and vote left and right because either they have Trump derangement syndrome or Trump enablement syndrome. One of the two. They're going to come out and vote. They've achieved their goal here. They've reinvested everyone into this fictional system that does not and has never, well, let me not say never, but in my lifetime, hasn't supported us and isn't for us. They've reinvested everybody. While everyone was like, we're tired, of these politics of the left, right. Let's vote for Donald Trump because he's an outsider, quote unquote. They've managed to reinvest everybody into this process, reinvest everybody into the system and make them think that they actually have a voice. And that's where we're at right now. We're in the worst position we've been in my lifetime. I've never seen the country as divided as it is right now. And I know it's been more divided. I'm fairly young, okay? But in my lifetime, I've never seen this before. You can't even mention Donald Trump without people getting freaking triggered one way or another.
Yeah.
and that's what the ultimate game was here. And I think they played it out perfectly.
Well said.
Going back to what Donald Trump said in his last the coronavirus task force, I think that's the proper name, the briefings, I'm sure you watched the last one go down. Right, Billy?
Probably. I'm not sure. Tell me about it, and I'll tell you if I saw it or not. I've been actively trying to stay away from this stuff because it's been beating me over the head, and quite frankly, I'm getting tired of it.
Well, the recent
go ahead.
the recent shindig is over what he was saying about the disinfectant.
I'm gonna inject myself with Clorox.
Pretty much. Well, out there in your city,
right?
It seems like some people were actually doing just that. Lots of calls to the New York City's Poison Control Center for exposure to certain household chemicals. So, well, the thing is, you have to understand.
That's how we get down out here, Mike.
Well, that's how a lot of people are, though. That's the issue when you hear someone saying something on TV. They say, "Oh, fuck, that must be true. Let me go do this," and that's the danger. Lots of people think, well, people that are smart are not going to do that, but trust me, there's a lot of people with the lack of common sense. So you have to take that for consideration. Lots of dumbasses here.
Oh, man, absolutely, man. Anybody that would drink Clorox because somebody told them to, come on.
They're idiotic.
They said there was about 30 calls.
Yeah.
That they got here.
30 calls.
So statistically, we're not that dumb, but
there's a few.
30 of them, and it was a boost from last year. They said it was double the amount for around the same time. So,
oh my God, what's going on out there?
I can't defend that. Okay, so let me apologize on behalf of New York and
what's going on with New York? What's going on there? What's going on there in the Bronx, by the way?
Well, man,
it's
it's really quiet out here right now. What's up? Finish up, guys.
Oh, I was gonna say, are you in the Bronx or where are you?
I'm in the Bronx.
Oh shit. Okay.
Yeah, he's not like where like in New York City, Manhattan. That's just like layer upon layer upon layer of people.
The Bronx is about the same way, man.
Really?
Yeah, man. In particular, this is South Bronx, right? And I live closer to the North Bronx now, but I grew up in the South Bronx. But it's a lot of that. There's a lot of people. There's people upon people upon people here, throughout the 5 boroughs. And you'll find areas that are more secluded. Regardless, but I don't live in one of those areas. I live in an apartment building, and we're stacked, one on top of each other. So it's not that different from Manhattan. I mean, Manhattan is where I'm sure you've been here before. You're originally from Jersey, so I'm sure you've been here before.
Yeah.
That's where everything is.
Yeah, the last time I was in the Bronx was in November to visit a friend of mine.
I thought you came here to see the Yankees or something. Right. No, but that's how it is out here too. So I believe the reason I saw, not that I saw. Let me rephrase. I believe the reason that I know of so many dead is because we're here in the Bronx and there's a large Latin American community and a large African American community here, and we are not exactly the healthiest people out here. The Bronx is probably, I think it's one of the worst counties in the nation. I'm not 100% sure, but you can guys go look it up. And people have underlying conditions here, right? Diabetes and heart disease, all this other stuff.
A lot of diabetic victims.
I think it ran wild over here, and that's why I saw so many. I was aware of so many people that passed away. It makes sense. Like the statistics came out, and I read that, and I'm like, you know what? That can explain it. So finish up. What were you going to ask me about the Bronx?
Well, I was just curious if you lived close to the Bronx. That's where everything really has been affected. That location there, and of course, I was also going to mention just a random headline came up on my cell phone a few days ago that stated Bin Laden plotted killing Obama, so the totally unprepared Biden would succeed him. I never knew that, but thank God that never happened, right?
Well, who knows, right?
I don't know if that's true.
I believe that Bin Laden's been dead since 2001.
Well,
right?
I agree with you on that, and I've mentioned that on the show. A Fox News article is still up stating that he was dead back in 2001.
I remember that.
Why hasn't that article been removed?
Oh, you know, they're banking. First off, they don't care. They know people aren't going to go look, and if they go look, they're going to find some way to justify it. That's what people do, you know. And unfortunately, it is what it is.
Do you really buy that story, though? Do you really buy the story of being buried at sea?
No.
It's hard to even even think that way. That they buried him at sea.
When I heard that, Michael, I what a slap in the face. I was so pissed off because when we took down Saddam Hussein's sons, their photographs ended up on the front page of every newspaper in this country. And public enemy number one, Osama bin fucking Laden, was killed and dumped into the sea. What a slap in the face for his religion. Fuck his religion. He was a terrorist. He supported terrorism. Whether or not he was even involved in 9/11, he was a terrorist and supported terrorist activity. Ugh.
No, I'm with you on that one, man.
Yeah, man. Uday and Qusay Hussein. I remember they put their pictures on display for everybody to see.
That's
in
right.
celebration.
That's right. And how gruesome were those images, because they were shot and there was blood all over them and they were dead, and they had the front page pictures, you know, of these two guys dead. And yet public enemy number one, Osama bin Laden, he gets killed and we can't see a picture of him because we've got to send him to Allah.
Yeah, come on. I don't buy that shit. It's retarded. And by the way, I'm sure you already know this, Billy. But Mike, I'm not sure if you know this, but 24 members of Osama bin Laden's family were evacuated from the United States in the first days following the terrorist attack. Yes. So you do know that, but doesn't that make you?
Because there was a big.
Isn't that crazy though?
Well, yeah, but
Jesus.
See, did you guys ever see Michael Moore's
Fahrenheit 9/11?
9/11.
Word. Saw it in theaters.
Okay,
Theater.
Great movie. I'm not a big fan of him, but a great movie. And there were some really interesting things that he pointed out in that film. One of which was the association of the bin Ladens with the family of the Bushes.
That's right.
Okay.
It goes deep.
And that's right. It goes very deep. And right away, I forget what they called him. He was a guy who was one of the speakers for Saudi Arabia, who came to the president and said, listen, we need to get the bin Ladens, because there was a huge amount of bin Ladens living in America, like something like 150 of them. And they were all directly associated with him through family association. And whoever the guy, I think it was, I can't remember the guy who it was that spoke to our President Bush, but he was a direct affiliate of the prince to Saudi Arabia. And the first thing they said was, we need to get the bin Ladens out of here, because if it was Osama bin Laden, we don't want their safety being jeopardized. So let's fly them out. So that was the only flight that went out of America, or anywhere for that matter, took the bin Ladens, about 150 of them. I think the actual number was 146, if I'm correct, and flew those guys back. What does that tell you?
Yeah, man, I absolutely. You know, Osama bin Laden, I think don't quote me on this because I don't remember off the top, but I think they were involved in the Carlyle group. I'm not 100%. I know they were business partners with the Bushes. That's 100%.
Yep.
And what was I going to tell you guys?
Don't worry.
I'm drawing a blank on it. But yeah, man, they were flown out of here because there was a relationship. Freaking Osama bin Laden was a CIA agent, right? I admitted his code name was Tim Osman. I'm
That's
sure you
right.
guys know that. That's old news.
Yeah.
So yeah, he didn't die when they said he died. They rolled him out for some reason. I think it was on May 1st or May 5th that they rolled him out and said he's dead, Mayday. It was a bunch of nonsense. They found a tape in Pakistan of all places. The neighbors that were in the compound, because it was a compound that they found him in, and the neighbors of that house said that they never saw bin Laden. Well, two neighbors, I think, came out and said it's nonsense. He wasn't here. I don't believe it, because they never freaking saw him. And they were like, that's impossible. Not in this community. It was a gated community. And one of the guys was like, yeah, I get out and walk around with my family every night. He's like, I rent a couple of the houses that are on the block of where the bin Laden compound was, and I've never seen him. So that's nonsense. He was not here. And a part of the evidence that they used was a videotape of bin Laden watching himself. I don't know if you guys remember.
Was he?
It's still out there somewhere. He was. They found a bunch of quote unquote porn. And
yeah, they were saying that. Bunch of child porn, they said. But I don't believe that. I don't buy that. So he was watching child porn. Okay.
Yeah, it's bull.
I don't buy that shit.
And then there's one video of this guy that's supposed to be Osama bin Laden watching himself on television. Watching Osama bin Laden on television. So we're to believe that Osama bin Laden set up a tripod to tape himself watching himself on television, and that's the evidence that we have that he was in the compound, and some diaries and stuff like that. And that's it. And it's just if it came out of the alternative media, people would have been laughing at it. But since it came out of the White House, it's official and it's the truth.
And that's the end of the story. But yes, I mean, this is amazing. Going back to 2001, getting very nostalgic here. And of course, you can remember the 2001 anthrax attacks that were carried out by one or more U.S. government scientists.
Uh-huh.
The FBI, they've acknowledged that. That's a deep shit there. And of course, you have the U.S. falsely blaming Iraq for playing a role on 9/11. Thanks to Dick Cheney.
Yep.
For saying we have overwhelming evidence on Al-Qaeda.
And don't forget, weapons of mass destruction.
Weapons of mass destruction.
We had no right to go into Iraq and kill Saddam Hussein or create the war that we did. There was no reason for us to go into Iraq, none whatsoever. The fact is, from what I understand, and again, based on that film by Michael Moore, Fahrenheit 9/11, was allegedly they wanted to build a pipeline going through, and don't quote me on this, I can't remember all the countries.
That's
I believe it was Jordan, possibly Afghanistan, and another Arab country. And they wanted to build a pipeline for natural gas going through all of them. And allegedly, it was in order to do that, they were going to take down Osama bin Laden because allegedly he had weapons of mass destruction, which, as we all know, was bullshit.
Right. I remember that. I saw Fahrenheit 9/11 once a long time ago, so I don't remember every single detail, but what you just laid out there is true, right? And it reminds me of the Qasem Soleimani story right now, because no one knew who that dude was up until he got killed, and then he became the most dangerous man in the world, de facto. The next day, oh my God, they killed the biggest terrorist in the world that no one knew who he was. It reminds me of weapons of mass destruction that weren't really there. I'm not saying Qasem Soleimani was a good guy. I don't freaking know. Okay, but one thing I do know is that I didn't know who the hell he was, and about 90% of the population on Earth didn't know who the hell this guy was either, up until they shot him and they made this entire narrative around him. So it's the same deal. They continue the same playbook, no matter who's in the White House, man. The playbook is the same. They run it, they execute it, and they've been getting away with it for a long time.
Well, that I agree with completely as well. You got to play by the rules, or else you're out. You're basically forced to obey the narrative. And speaking of COVID-19, as we were earlier, have you ever thought that this was maybe a part of Agenda 21, perhaps?
Well, I mean, it's definitely part of Agenda 2030, right?
It definitely is. Yeah.
Event 201.
Yeah. Event
I
201.
had Ole Demogard on my show not too long ago, and he's like, "It's really Agenda 21. Just take out the zero." it was pretty insightful. I thought it was funny.
It's true.
Yeah, man. I mean, they're trying to pull something off here, man. It's obvious. This is more than just a virus.
There's got to be more. There's always more to the story. That's the bad part.
Right, and we're gonna learn as time goes on what's actually going on and how things really shake out, unfortunately. And we're staring mass vaccinations in the face, and I don't know where you guys stand on that, and it's all good, whatever your stance is, but this is what the alternative community has been talking about for a long time, right? Bill Gates has been wanting to vaccinate the population of Earth for a long time, and he's openly stating it now. And all of a sudden, this guy has become the leader of the world. He's out in front. He is the spokesman of this whole deal.
I didn't vote for him.
Yeah, Bill Gates is nuts. He wants to vaccinate everyone, mandatory, of course.
Yeah. He's a kook, man. He really is. For a multi-billionaire, he's nuts.
He's out of his mind.
I gotta agree.
What's up, Mike?
I was just saying, I got to agree with all of you on those points. And of course, look up Crimson Contagion, which is another fun little read if you haven't read about it already.
What is that about?
That was a simulation administered by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services from, I think, like January to August. And they tested the capacity of the U.S. federal government and the 12 U.S. states to respond to a severe influenza pandemic originating from where? Guess where? Guess, I dare you.
China?
There you go.
Wow.
Ding, ding, ding. You are fucking right.
Incredible.
And the exercise involves a scenario in which tourists returning from China spread a respiratory virus in the United States, beginning in Chicago.
Insane.
And this is what exactly is this? Like you said,
this
it was
is a simulation.
Online?
Simulation.
But where did you read this? What you were telling us to check it out? Where do we check it out?
Just type in Crimson Contagion and you'll find even a Wikipedia page, and you'll find other articles as well talking about this.
Got it. Okay.
Yep. It's pretty insane. Just like Event 201, just like Bill Gates releasing those mosquitoes at a TED Talk.
Right.
I mean, it's insane. It's insane stuff, if you think about it. People have lost their goddamn minds, in my opinion.
Oh my goodness! You know what? I got to interject right
Go ahead,
there, Michael.
Jump in there.
How many times have I said, I cannot believe the world, what has become of the world, and for someone to create a war-like disease, an unconventional warfare virus that can just wipe out, I mean, let's face it could wipe out millions of people. For someone to do that, you know what you are in my book? You're a piece of shit. To do that to humanity is just so wrong. And I just have nothing good to say about anybody involved in government, military, whatever it is, that would come up with something. Look, I'd sooner be able to deal with a nuclear bomb than I would with this virus, which you cannot see. It's probably more dangerous knowing that thing is out there than knowing, okay, everyone, get ready. You got like 15 minutes. A nuclear bomb is on its way. Take shelter. Okay, I can do that. Maybe I'll live, maybe I won't. But how am I supposed to protect myself from walking down the street, passing people who may be carrying a deadly virus that becomes airborne, et cetera, et cetera? And it's just, it's horrible. It blows my mind. We've changed not one bit in all the years that humanity's been around. The only thing that's changed is our weapons, but we're still vicious creatures.
Wow.
That's all.
Wow.
Wolf is man. Man is wolf to man. Sorry, I thought you were going to jump in there.
I can if you want me to.
Go ahead.
And I sincerely hope you're wrong, bro.
Me too.
And you can definitely make an argument for what it is you said. So I'm just gonna put that out there before I say what I say. It's I want to believe, and I do believe, that most of humanity is good. We're good people. I know a lot of good people. I've been around a lot of good people. I try to be as good of a person as I can possibly be.
Absolutely.
But the people on top, if we even call them people at this point, there's something freaking wrong with them, right? Either they're inbreds, I don't know what the hell is going on, but they lack empathy, right? They lack morals, and this even goes into corporate America. All these people that are at the top, they didn't get there by mistake. There's a certain amount of backstabbing that you need to do to get there. There's a certain amount of I don't care about everyone else that needs to happen for you to get to a certain place. And unfortunately, that's the case of it. Is something wrong with these people? If you lack empathy, in my opinion, are you human? Empathy is a characteristic of being an essential one of being human, in my opinion.
Right.
So what's going on?
It's about power, Billy.
Right.
I mean, you agree, right? I mean,
yeah, I don't disagree with you. Go ahead.
It's power, man. That's all. That's all.
It could certainly be that. I'm not seeking power, and I doubt any of you are. No. We just want to live our lives. We want to be left alone.
Hey, listen, if I was seeking power, I wouldn't be on this show. No, I love you, Michael.
No comment from Mr. Decon. What's going on over there?
I'm over here waiting to jump in. I was going to say.
I got at him immediately.
I was going to say,
You're fired.
I might have,
fired, Mike.
I might be off base here, but I might be a little, maybe I'm out of line here, but I want war with China, to be honest.
You think they're definitely at fault, Michael?
Either way, I want to bring jobs back to America.
Well, can't we bring jobs back to America without having war?
Well, I'm tyrannical, so that's the problem. I mean, I'm still on the bandwagon that we need to do this, that the United States economy would be better off in the long run by cutting off ties with China.
Well, I don't think we can, right? And
the thing is, we can't right now. Everything's so intertwined with the world.
The game's not set up
economy
for us to cut ties with China.
Unfortunately.
Or anybody for that matter.
Or anybody. That's right. See, we've gotten to a point in society where trade is a necessity for all countries. Buying, selling, the whole thing, it's a necessity. And that's how the world gets around. And let's face it, America is at the top of the food chain. And what happens to America affects the entire world.
I don't disagree with that either, man. It's it's lonely at the top, right? Supposedly, but I mean, everybody's gonna throw rocks at the throne, but we're throwing them back apparently, man. I could consider myself an isolationist at sometimes. If I was running the show at some point, if I got to the White House, which I have no aspirations of doing, and it would never happen anyway, because I don't have the right bloodline, man. It's not happening. I have to be related. Everybody knows that all these people are related. They're all cousins, and first cousins, second cousins, third cousins, 10th cousins. I'm not 10th cousins with any of these people, so it's not going to happen. But if I somehow fell headfirst into the presidency of the United States, first thing I would do is dismantle the empire. Everybody come back home. We're done. It's over. Everybody come back home. We'd be swimming in money here in the United States. Yes. I'd rebuild this entire place. Yes. Swimming in money once and that doesn't mean I'd abandon the military, right? We'd still have a strong military, but we wouldn't have it around the world. And I'd cut off aid to everyone. At least,
Yes.
and bring everybody back home. It's over. That's
Again,
Yes.
it's a good thing I'm not president. I already would have provoked the war with China and brought back all the factories here. So it's a good thing I wouldn't be president because I would be tyrannical. No doubt. No fucking doubt.
And
Well,
when would you have
you
time
have
to
the
do the
voice
radio
for it.
show?
Like I think if you run for president and you get nominated and you get up there and you start talking to these people, man, you'll hypnotize some of them. They'll go vote for you.
Well,
So-
Donald Trump, again, I think he was right. He did say early on in the game all about those tariffs. He was all about bringing the economy back to America here, cutting ties off with China. And I still agree with that completely. I'm sorry, but, that's just my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I am completely wrong with what I'm saying. But that's just
Michael,
how I'm going to roll.
This goes back to the conversation we just had with Fernando, and it's very similar because China is a big threat to us. They really are, and like it or not, government-wise, that's what it's all about. And you want Americans to have their own businesses and to manufacture things here so that and like Billy just said, contain everything within our own country. Stop sticking our nose in every goddamn country that needs help and wants us to butt in for their wars and give them $1 billion check every year. No, let's concentrate on America. We got a $20 trillion deficit. Let's worry about this country. Stop butting our noses in every other country.
I've been waiting for that to happen for a long time.
Yeah, you and me both.
Take care of what is already here and now.
Mm-hmm.
But we're not seeing that, though.
Well, Bones McCoy in the chat. Yeah, what's up to everybody in the chat? Just want to say what's up. Thank you for hanging out with us here tonight. Bones McCoy in the chat said something. He's absolutely right.
What'd he say?
And typically I would have honed right in on something like that, and I didn't. Shame on me. But he's absolutely right. Over here talking about China and bringing jobs back to the United States and all this other stuff, man, and that's all well and good. Yeah, but the real threat is the technology, man. It's going to put us all out of work. And he's absolutely right, or she is absolutely right. Whatever Bones is, I'm sorry. Don't know your gender, and you're free to pick it. Apparently,
we don't mind. Yeah, we don't mind what Bones is. It's okay. It could be anything.
But,
That's fine.
What a
yeah,
PC.
man,
It's cool. Yeah, don't worry.
But yeah, it's technology is going to take all our jobs, right? It's already happening.
It's
right?
already.
So
It's already happening.
That's the real threat.
You better
to be honest
learn.
with
You better learn the
How many-
code.
What's up?
I said you better learn the code right now.
If that, like, I mean, they won't need humans to even do that at some point.
I hope
You know,
not.
Everything is going away, and they're talking about this basic universal income, right? And they're even talking about it now with COVID-19. It's going to
Yikes.
be training for what's
Yeah.
going to come.
Who knows? Who knows what's going to
How
happen?
many of these jobs that have been lost are going to come back? How many of these things are we going to get back? I used to think the economy was just going to bounce right back up after all of this. I don't
Oof.
think that anymore.
No,
There's
no.
going to be a real slow rollout here. We're in some heavy crap here. And how many of these jobs are going to come back? How many of us are going to be replaced by robots at the end of this? You have these self-automated cars now, trucks that are going to drive themselves to and from, putting truckers out of work.
Insane.
They got robots to flip burgers at McDonald's now.
That's true. They got everything.
We're in trouble.
We are in trouble for sure. These are uncharted territories, no doubt. And Billy, I must say, it's almost time to wrap it up here. And I've been enjoying our conversation. I've been having a great time. I hope you had a good time too so far.
I did. I have to go edit my show after this. I'm going to be up for a while.
Yeah, man. I didn't want to take up too much of your time. I know you're a bit busy, and I just thought, oh man, I'm taking up Billy's time here.
I had a lot of fun. It was a pleasure. Thank you for having me, man. I had a blast.
Thank you, Billy. Thank you
with
for
both of
coming
you.
Yeah, I loved having you here,
Thank
man.
for being
Loved
good sports about everything, and thank you for listening to me rant about nonsense. I appreciate it. And you guys are welcome to come on the Infinite Fringe whenever you guys want. It'll be dope to have you guys on.
By the way, go ahead and plug anything you'd like again before we wrap it up here, Billy.
And I want to say what's up to everybody that's here today. Thank you for hanging with me. I hope you enjoyed it. My name is Billy Ray Valentine, Capricorn, and you can find
Nice.
me. You can find me
I like that.
over on Truth Frequency Radio, 7 p.m. Eastern, Sundays. Every Sunday live, 7 p.m. Eastern. Tomorrow, I have a friend of the show coming on, a friend of your show, Mr. Michael Horn.
Oh, okay.
I had a conversation with him on Friday. It was fascinating as hell. Like it was something else, man.
Well, good luck. Well, good luck, Billy.
He's coming on to talk to us. We're gonna have a good time. The show goes by very quickly. It's 1 hour. We're in and out.
Well,
and there are commercial breaks, so it goes quickly. You can find me over on Apple Podcast, The Infinite Fringe, same name, and of course, America Unplugged over on Iconic. It's an alternative to YouTube. We're doing our thing over there. It is a paid service over there. So, but they do have a 7-day free trial. You should go. David Icke has all of his stuff up there. The Jamie Icke and Gareth Icke have all their stuff up there too. Charlie Robinson is there. Neil Sanders is there. You can find America Unplugged there. So it'd be dope if you guys stop by. Everything over at theinfinitefringe.podbeam.com is absolutely free. So you go over there and check it out. Subscribe. Give me a 5-star rating. If you hate it, send it to somebody that you hate, and cool with that too. That's about it. I do wrestling stuff from time to time. HackerHameen.podbeam.com. Shouts to Stevie Richards. Shout to the Ayatollah Ben Hameen and everybody over there. The Strangler Steve King.
It's kind of ironic you say that, because this whole thing is basically a promo.
Right.
I'm basically cutting a promo all night.
I've been, hey, it's what I do, man. I come from that world. I'm sorry.
That's okay. And by the way, I got to ask you this pretty personal question. What's going on with you out there during these times of the lockdown? Are you getting some of that quarantine trim out there in NYC?
Oh,
you on Tinder? What's going on?
Man, I wish, that I wish. Unfortunately, that is not the case.
Oh, no. You got to get in there.
I can't do that. I'm a married man.
Oh no.
But it'd be nice, and it's readily available all over the place, and I can't partake in stuff like that. I can't do that.
Well, Billy, you made a mistake. I'm sorry. You made a mistake.
It's very possible, man, but I own it. It's mine, and I plan on keeping it that way.
Has the wife hit you yet?
She does it on a regular basis.
That's
you're a good man.
You can call her in.
You're a good man, Billy. we love you here. You did a great job. We are very proud of you, Billy. We're so glad you're here. And of course, my goodness, I hope you remain safe out there and coronavirus free.
And me too, brother. And thank you for that, man. And thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate everyone listening tonight. My name's Billy Ray Valentine. Take it easy, everybody.
Take care and good night.
Take care.
And there he goes, the one and only Billy Ray. That was pretty amazing, right, Mike?
Phew.
You have fun with that. A good time.
Yeah, it was. It was fun.
I enjoyed it, man.
He was nice. It's, we got to, talk our differences a bit. But I think mostly him, I can't speak for you, but I think he kind of agreed with us on most of the subjects, where you and I kind of...
No, well, he doesn't have to agree with us, though. That's the best part,
Yeah, of course not.
It's better when they don't agree with us.
No, I agree. I understand what you're
It's
saying.
more fun.
I understand what you're saying. I'm just saying that what we were talking about, there were some of the things that, we may have disagreed with. But again,
okay.
Total respect, and that's what it's all about.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And Mike, go ahead and plug anything you'd like before we wrap it up here, man.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Decon of the Michael Decon program. Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States, Mr. Michael Decon. Dun, 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 dun.
That would be insane. It'd be some black metal song to come on during my intro.
Anywho,
go ahead, Mike.
As usual, my websites, MikeHideous.com, MYKE, hideous.com. That is my musical efforts and releases, and my artwork, horribleartwork.com, and as I've been saying, I got new t-shirt designs and new merchandise that's going to be coming out by next week. So I'm very happy to promote that. And if you want to check up on what's going on, you can also get me at facebook.com/hideous Mike, MYKE. That's it. Thank you, Michael.
Very nice. Talk to you soon, my friend. We have a busy week coming up.
Another one. You're working me to the bone, man.
Well, someone's got to do it. Someone's got to do it.
Someone's got to work me to the bone.
Yeah, that's right. So Tuesday, get ready, Mike. We have Mr. Richard Saradon, and then, of course, Friday, we will be joined by Jeffrey Prather and Mr. Paul Cottrell.
Oh, boy, that's going to be a good one.
Then the next day, we got James Perloff.
Okay.
That's going to be a fun time right there.
Yeah, as always.
It's always a good time, man. It's always an honor and pleasure, and I'll talk to you soon, my friend.
All right, brother. You have a good weekend, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We love you guys.
Take care, Mike. And there he goes, boys and girls, the one and only Mr. Mike Hideous. Always a honor and pleasure to talk to him. And, of course, special thanks to all of you out there. Thank you to David as well. Appreciate that. And, of course, that reminds me, if you want exclusive content that you won't find anywhere else, subscribe to the Patreon, patreon.com/Michael Decon. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. And of course, you can take us on the road. If you'd like, download the podcast rendition of the show on iTunes, Stitcher, Castbox, and Spotify. International listeners out there, thank you so much for your support as well. Love all of you Canadians and the Germans, the folks in Australia, and the UK. See, I haven't forgot about you folks in the UK. I know you're out there. I appreciate all of you very much. Oh, I really do. Whatever it is that you do choose to believe, remember you must adapt now, as all control has been seized. It's pretty insane. And that we are all looking into the abyss right now. Without a rescue party in sight, I'm afraid. And that is the reality. My goodness. Stay safe, everyone, no matter where you are. On this island Earth, I'm Michael Decon. And with that said, the world is a mysterious place. And life itself is a mystery. Until next time, good night, everybody.